Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We had a lot to talk about. We got a green pre-market, which is very nice to see. Hopefully that green pre, which is continuing from the overnight markets yesterday, can continue into the actual market open, and we're going to find out in about 45 minutes. We got some China headlines that are relatively bullish, which is why I think the markets are actually green in the pre. And we're going to get some more updates on that China stuff throughout the entire day. So hopefully that stuff is not as bad going into Seoul, where President Trump will be meeting with Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, on November 1st. By the way, Trump might be meeting with Kim Jong-un on November 1st as well. So that was a new update we found out about today. So we're going to see if that happens. President Trump was the only president in American history that actually met with the dictator in North Korea back in 2018. So that might happen again going into the end of October, early November. We got Tesla and Netflix this week. It's going to be a big one. And we're going to see what happens with Tesla and Netflix. We'll do a little bit of an earnings preview and see what we've got going on there. We had a bunch of different updates for some of these tech stocks in the pre-market, including some upgrades on Apple. These iPhone 17 pre-order numbers and then actual order numbers are starting to come in, and it's pretty damn juicy. You got one firm even raising Apple to 275 and another firm raising them to 310. First $300 upgrade on Apple that we've seen in a long time. So we'll talk about that. We'll go through some of those details, and then we'll talk about Amazon, because Amazon had some issues in the pre-market, not just the stock, but the actual company itself. And that affected Robinhood, Coinbase, Snapchat, all the companies that rely on AWS. So we'll talk about that and keep going from there. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's get started. We got a lot to get into. Hasset's on CNBC right now. We'll get to him in a second. He's talking about this government shutdown. Hopefully he's saying something positive about this shutdown. He does have the quote right here that I think the shutdown is likely to end sometime this week, which is kind of what I think a lot of people were expecting. And if the shutdown doesn't end, the White House will look at stronger measures. Hopefully it ends up getting fixed in the next coming days. Yes, happy Diwali to everybody as well. For those that do celebrate it, Indian holiday. I am going to be going back home tonight to see some family for Diwali. So if you are Indian and you do celebrate it, happy Diwali to everybody as well. It's kind of, what is it? It's I mean, it's basically a holiday that celebrates good over evil, if I had to sum it up. I mean, there's a lot of backstory to what good over evil means, but at its core, it's a celebration of good over evil. So that's what we got on Diwali. All right, so let's get started. I think we got to start off with this China news, because this is the most bullish stuff we've had over the past couple of days, and that is why the markets are green in the pre. Trump last night basically calmed down a lot of concerns when it came to de-escalation around China. And this was stuff that, the market really was looking for, and as a result of getting it, I think that's why we are seeing this green momentum. S&P 500, 667. If we can get 670, maybe 673, which is all-time highs, is not that crazy to achieve. Tesla's up 1%, Palantir's up 1%, Hoodie up 3%, Google's up, Grab's up, Reddit's up, Amazon's up, even with Amazon's issues in the pre-market. Meta's up, Salesforce, AMD, SoFi. A lot of this based on what Trump said last night around China. And what did he say? Well, basically he said that he wants to resolve things and he doesn't want to get into this massive trade war with China.
Now they're paying an unbelievable amount of money to the United States. They probably can't pay that much, and I'm okay with that. We can lower that, but they have to do things for us too. It's no longer a one-way street.
Yeah. What would you lower it to, do you think?
Depends. I mean, we'll have to see what they want. One of the penalties we have, and because they're sending in fentanyl, we have a 20%, as you know, a 20% tariff on that. But they'd be paying about 157% tariff, which is, record-setting type tariff. I don't want them to do that. I want to help China. I'm not looking to hurt China, but they have to give us things too.
As you can see right there, pretty bullish, right? I want to help China. I don't want to hurt China, but they have to give us some stuff too. He also goes on to then talk about how he doesn't want to play the rare earth mineral game with China, and he wants China to actually cooperate. China's also, said over the past couple of days that they are ready to work with the U.S. and decoupling from them would be irrational. And then here's the biggest thing that happened that kind of went under noticed over the weekend. This was Scott Bessent talking, for lack of a better word, talking smack about one of the Chinese officials last week. And then we have an update on what happened to one of those Chinese officials.
B and C, therefore we had to do D. And that's not true. There was a lower level trade person who was slightly unhinged here in August. I think his name is Li Guangdong, and threatening, saying that China would unleash chaos on the global system if the U.S. went ahead with our docking fees for Chinese ships. And this is clearly something that they were planning all along. I think that things can de-escalate, that we don't want to have to escalate. We have things that are...
I think things can de-escalate. We don't want to escalate. And then last night, China's top trade negotiator, Li, the guy that Dissent just mentioned, was removed as a permanent World Trade Organization representative. So, I mean, you're talking about some major progress. Not only is Trump saying we want to de-escalate with China, then Dissent, who's calling out the quote-unquote unhinged representative from China as one of their top trade negotiators, he gets removed as a permanent representative with the World Trade Organization, meaning Dissent just is not going to have to deal with this guy anymore. He's going to have to deal with someone who's probably a bit more reasonable. Yes, he got a black eye, exactly. Maybe Dissent had a role in getting this guy removed. But the point is, it's de-escalating. And this is very, very nice to see. And as long as that continues to happen, maybe this China scuffle that has been taking place over the past couple of weeks is not that big of a deal. And as a result, that would be very good for markets. CleanSpark getting an upgrade right here. Look at that, 2183 up 11%. The headline right here is CleanSpark has hired a industry veteran in the AI compute space, Jeffrey Thomas, as the senior vice president of AI data centers. All right, so CleanSpark's making the full-on pivot right here to a data center play outside of a Bitcoin miner. And I'm sure, they will still engage in Bitcoin mining. But hiring someone from the industry to lead their AI compute data center businesses, that likely means you're getting a bit of a pivot. So CleanSpark right there, that is up 11%. Again, a lot of the Bitcoin miners had a crappy week. Last week, Cypher's up 6%, TeraWolf is up, Bitfarms up, Hive is up, Marathon's up, Riot's up, Galaxy up, and then Iren is also up in the pre-market. All of them getting some love as the broader market goes green, and the S&P 500 up about 0.41%. Micron, by the way, going crazy. They got an upgrade to 245 this morning. I know not everyone, there's not a majority of people that invest in semiconductors that are in Micron, but there's a decent chunk. Micron right there up 4%. I mean, it's not the hottest semiconductor name, but it is one of those names that has developed an audience. And, this thing was at 105 8 months ago. Now it's at 210. So not too bad. We are seeing some more momentum there. And that is likely not slowing down. Let's transition over to Hasset, see what he's saying about the shutdown, see if we can get some updates on that. And then we'll get into some headlines around NVIDIA.
It has been very active throughout this process, but it's also his position that this is a thing that the Senate needs to work out. A lot of our friends in the Senate have said that it was just bad optics for Democrats to open the government before the No Kings rally, and that now there's a shot that this week things will come together and very quickly the moderate Democrats will move forward and get us an open government, at which point we can negotiate whatever policies they want to negotiate with regular order. Now, I was very pleased to see that my friend Senator Shaheen from New Hampshire, a very sound-minded Democrat, came out and supported opening the government on Friday. So it means that there's sort of cracks in the Schumer armor. I think the Schumer shutdown is likely to end sometime this week. But I can tell you that if the story that we've been basically hearing from moderates that, look, we just can't do it in front of the No Kings rally, if that ends up not being true, then I think that the White House is going to have to look very closely, along with Russ Vought, at stronger measures that we could take to bring him to the table.
So there would be negotiations about what to do. We're running out of time before November 1st. There would be negotiations about what to do with the pandemic super subsidies for Obamacare.
Well, that again is an issue for the Senate. But the Democrats passed that law. It was in an emergency for COVID, and they ended it now because it was such an expensive law. And so it's the Democrats' policy, it's the Democrats' shutdown, and it's the Schumer shutdown. And really, the Senate needs to figure it out.
But it affects, real people and people in red states. And I mean, we're subsidizing health care for a lot of, but like it or not, that's just the position we're in. So there are certain people that either wouldn't have health care or where the premiums would go up so much. And not to say that it's, not Obamacare's fault, because there's a lot of flaws, but you see something where there would be some fixes put in to get Republicans to agree to do that?
again, that's up to the Senate to negotiate. But if you look at the expiring subsidies, the vast majority of people, certainly low-income people, aren't affected at all. It's just that the policy was expanded to people up to 4 times the poverty level, and so you get people who have much higher incomes than were intended to be protected by.
All right, so Hasset giving us a little bit of an update right there on the idea of this government shutdown ending. I mean, so far the market hasn't really cared that much about it. So if it ends up lasting as long as Kalshi thinks it can last, which is up until November 16th, they're giving it a 30% chance right there. Then that would be pretty aggressive. But if it is resolved this week, then I do think that would be more bullish than not. The question is, will we end up seeing that happen? And the other thing that's really important about this, Kalshi now has 40 days on the forecast. The other thing that's interesting about this is, we still don't have a lot of government data. Now, we will be getting CPI. That's going to be happening on Friday. So we'll at least be getting some gauge of inflation. And that's going to be happening a couple days before the FOMC meeting on October 29th, where more likely than not, we're getting another 25 basis point cut. But having that CPI definitely would be important. Having some job data would really be important. And, hopefully if we can get the shutdown avoided or at least resolved, we're going to start to get a lot more of that data. But we're going to see throughout the week if that ends up happening as well. Real quick as well, I said this on the market future show last night, but just want to announce it here. Cactus Jack has officially joined AK Media full-time. So a lot of you guys probably already know him every day in the chat. He's basically like our personal Bloomberg terminal. And yeah, he's joining full time. So this is our first extension of AK Media. Going to have someone who helps me basically get all the news that I need through every single day, pre-show, post-show, during the show. And, he's already been doing it for like a year. So I just asked, do you want to do it full time if you're already going to be here? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So there he is. Whenever you see a post from Cactus Jack, you can assume it's more likely true than not. I mean, I'm sure there's some things he'll possibly get wrong, maybe because the source is wrong. But more likely than not, he will be up to date and accurate on pretty much every piece of breaking news. So if you see an earnings update or a price target upgrade, you can trust that you're getting it from a reliable source. All right, cool. So that's what we got from Mr. Cactus. Let's go to BM&R. I mean, Tom Lee, this guy continues to buy the damn dip. He bought 203,000 Ethereum over the weekend. Tom Lee, the crypto market saw one of its largest deleveraging events last week, and this put downward pressure on ETH prices. Open interest for ETH sits at the same level as seen on June 30th of this year. Given the expected super cycle for Ethereum, this price dislocation represents an attractive risk to reward. We acquired 200,000 Ethereum tokens over the past week, pushing our ETH holdings to 3.24 million, 2.7% of the total supply. We are now more than halfway towards our initial pursuit of the alchemy of 5%. Most people don't even think he's going to stop at 5%. B. Riley with the $90 upgrade on BM&R thinks they're going to get to 7.2% by the end of 2026. And it makes sense because why would they stop, right? Like they're probably not going to stop just because the price of Ethereum goes up, especially if they're able to continue diluting at a premium to their net asset value. So look, I mean, if you're on the Ethereum bandwagon, if you believe in it, I did do a deep dive on BM&R. This was one of the stocks that was on the Substack. BM&R and Duolingo were the two stocks that we did a deep dive on. And, if you read through the deep dive, it's trying to get to a better understanding of the mechanisms and mechanics of how a digital asset treasury should operate, but also if Ethereum is an asset worth operating on. And if you believe in those two things, then you got to be ready for the volatility of the ride, but the ride might end up rewarding people long-term. Bitmine right there, 5.52%, got all the way to 47 last week as Ethereum took a hit. So, I mean, a lot of this really is dependent on Ethereum. And if Ethereum can stay above 4,000 where it is right now, we should hopefully be able to stay in that $50 range. So that's what you have on Bitmine, and that's what you have on Ethereum. Now, again, last week, Devin Ryan initiated a price target on $50 on SBET, which is one of the competitors for Bitmine. And, I don't know that much about SBET, but I do know that if Wall Street analysts are starting to get bullish on ETH treasuries, that's a good thing. And that's definitely not something that we should ignore. By the way, FG Nexus, which is another Ethereum treasury, they lost their premium to NAV. They are now trading below NAV, same as SBET. Bitmine is one of the only digital asset treasuries outside of MicroStrategy that actually trades at a premium above NAV. And these guys initiated a $200 million buyback. So Bitmine already has a $1 billion buyback if they trade below NAV. The whole point is to not get below NAV, but these guys initiated a buyback for if they do get below NAV, which they are below NAV. Again, it's just I wouldn't buy anything outside of the winners in the space. And I think the winners are BM&R and probably MicroStrategy for Bitcoin. I think a lot of the other treasuries have a lot of different issues, and raising capital is one of those issues. You need to be able to effectively do it. And I think BMNR is doing this at scale. Eatzilla, I don't know what's going on with them. They were supposed to have some special meeting a week ago, and I don't even know what the outcome of that meeting was. But, oh, they did a reverse split? Oh, that's probably why. They had to do it at 1680. This thing was like $4, right? Yeah, they probably split. Again, you got to pick the winners in the space, and I think BMNR, especially with Tom Lee, is going to be one of those winners. Bitmine right there, 52.51 as we're green in the pre-markets. All right, let's talk about NVIDIA. So NVIDIA, actually, let's do Amazon before we do NVIDIA. So what happened to Amazon in the pre-markets? Well, AWS got shut down, and it got shut down bad. The northeast sector of the country that runs on AWS basically fell apart. And I was sleeping when this happened, so I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I saw the updates, but I wasn't like trading on the overnight markets on Robinhood, so I didn't see like that much of the dismay that people had. But a lot of people were upset about it. And they were upset about Coinbase. They were upset about Snapchat. So it wasn't a specific issue to any of these companies. It was just AWS had a massive drawdown. Now, we don't know exactly why it fell. Was it a bug? Was it a CrowdStrike moment? Was it one of these things where it's like, some engineer forgot to push an update? Like literally, this has happened before where engineers, have forgot to push updates or do certain things, and then the entire system collapses. So we don't know the exact details of what happened other than it ended up going down. And the memes are, absolutely hilarious of what ended up happening. I think the takeaway from this, it's now been resolved over the past like 5 hours, so it's not that big of a deal anymore. I think the takeaway from this is very simple. And I hate to be the guy to say it, but it is true. And I was the same person who said this when CrowdStrike fell, and I bought a little bit. I should have bought a lot more during that time. Bad publicity on a company that literally runs the internet, at least half the internet shut off for a couple hours when AWS went down. It just shows you how much the world relies on Amazon. It's just that simple. So, the stock was red a little bit. Now it's green. I know the stock has not really moved that much, but at the end of the day, if every major company on the planet, or, a significant portion of every major company is using AWS, I mean, if the thing shuts down and the whole world shuts down because of whatever reason, bug, code, whatever maintenance, it just goes to show how much the world needs AWS and needs Amazon. And if they can show any acceleration in growth, then I think the street will get back on board to the story and the stock can get some momentum. Amazon has quadrupled their operating income since 2021, 4x operating income. Stock's up 12%. There is obviously a narrative issue with this stock, and that's okay because that's when you want to buy. But narratives change. And if narratives change quickly, then stock prices can also change very quickly as well. Eric says this happens to them like every year and there are other options. Yeah, that is fair. Look, the bear case on this, I don't want to say it's fully bullish just because they went down and you saw how much the world relied on them. The bear case is people might leave and they might say, you know what, we can't, whatever Robinhood's like, dude, we cannot rely on AWS going down. We're going to have to go to GCP or something like that. So that is the bear case. It's just, if this has happened every year and they continue to quadruple operating income, it probably means that at the end of the day, the other alternatives just aren't good enough to get people to switch in a meaningful way. And that's what keeps Amazon at the top. 214.08. Again, AWS acceleration. That's what you got to look like. And again, I don't want to say like I'm pounding the table on Amazon because we might have a crappy Q3 where AWS doesn't accelerate, margins go down a little bit because of the tariffs, and this stock is at 195. Like that is very possible. I would not be surprised if that happened. Quite frankly, if we get under 200, that would be the opportunity to really buy and set up a position for 2026. But I also think it could easily re-rate to 230, 240 by the end of the year if a narrative goes in the opposite direction. So I think that's the base case we have to be thinking about when it comes to Amazon. Okay, NVIDIA, what do we got going on? So Jensen and TSM made a pretty big announcement over the weekend, and it was that they officially unveiled the first wafer for their Blackwell chip that was created in the United States.
This last week was a historic week. We manufactured the most advanced AI chips in the world, in the most advanced fab in the world, here in America for the first time. All of this started with President Trump wanting to re-industrialize the United States. His tariffs was a pressing agent in making this possible at the speed that we're doing. And now, shortly after less than a year, we're now manufacturing the most advanced chips for AI here in the United States. This is just the beginning of it. With the partnership of the supply chain in Taiwan, TSMC, an incredible partner, a strategic partner for the United States in bringing manufacturing of the most most critical sector of technology here to the United States. This is just the starting point, where after that, with Foxconn, Amkor, Spill, Wistron, so many of our other partners, we're going to bring the entire supply chain of building AI infrastructure back here in the United States. By the end of the next 3 or 4 years, we'll probably manufacture, we're on target to manufacture about $500 billion of AI supercomputing technology to be installed here in the United States.
Pretty cool stuff from Jensen. And obviously, you know, Trump loves hearing that the reindustrialization of semiconductors is beginning to happen in the United States. We did get the Amkor mention, which was very nice. Not that many packaging companies that work as closely as Amkor does with TSM and the fab that TSM has in Arizona. 3215 right there, up 2.75% for Amkor. I mean, look, this is really bullish NVIDIA, and this is bullish the entire semiconductor ecosystem. Jensen goes on in that interview to basically say we are not in a bubble. We are in the beginning of the early cycles of CapEx and CapEx spend. If you believe Jensen, then you believe that this really is the beginning. If you don't believe it, then you think that all this CapEx spend is going to go for nothing, essentially, and these companies are spending hundreds of billions of dollars for no reason. If that's not the case, then a lot of that manufacturing comes back to the United States, creates a lot of jobs, and ultimately continues the CapEx cycle at the rate that it's going at right now. Now, JP Morgan came out with a report this morning, and they said NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's prediction of AI CapEx going from $600 billion to $3.4 trillion by 2030 is feasible. The bank expects the tech sector to fund it through operating cash flow, private equity, venture capital inflows. Even with projected $1.6 trillion annual funding gap, private markets could contribute to about $500 billion per year by 2030. And it looks like the private markets are ready to invest in this. I mean, there was a company that raised a $133 million seed round in the AI space. They're building another foundation model, particularly around spatial reasoning is kind of how they call it. So there's essentially an LLM for a specific sector of the market, which a lot of these companies are going after. And the harder ones, kind of Vlad is doing this with mathematical superintelligence, do require more capital. So you're going to have that going on. You've obviously got the private markets funding OpenAI and Anthropic raising their revenue targets to $26 billion. They're doing $5 billion right now for next year. I mean, like $26 billion in 2026 is pretty damn incredible. But the fact that the private markets are ready to be funded in this way is leading JP Morgan to believe that it's going to be possible. They estimated roughly 40% of new debt, $430 billion, would come from bank loans and 60% from bond issuance. This is kind of what Oracle did with their corporate bonds a couple weeks ago. Even with this increase, the tech industry's net debt to cash flow ratio would rise only from 0.7 to 1.2, still below the global average. So a lot of the people that are comparing this to 1999, saying that it's all funded through debt, it's like, it's hard to say that when there's so much cash flow and so much of that cash flow being redirected in the places that need to be allocated to when it comes to this CapEx. And it looks like that's what the big tech companies are doing. Now, JP Morgan did say you should be cautioned for energy infrastructure, not financing, as the next major bottleneck as the AI data center growth drives massive new power demand, aka the energy stocks are likely going to catch a bid, even if the financing of it is going to take some time for it to play out. So that is why you continue to see the energy names get the momentum that they get. Oklo right here in the pre-markets up another 3%. And a lot of those rare earth stocks are also pretty green, as they were green in the overnight markets after going through, you know, relatively ugly red. But, you know, that's bullish for Iran. That's bullish for CleanSpark. Again, if you have a thesis on these Bitcoin miners turned data centers, or the Nebuses or the CoreWeaves of the world, I mean, your thesis is pretty strong. The question is, what valuation do you want to get into these guys, and what is your timeline? But you know, not all of these guys are going to turn out to be winners, but if there is way more demand than supply, then you're going to need a lot of residual demand going to some of the winners that are not as big of a winner as like a CoreWeave, but they're still going to get some part of that market. And that ultimately could help their stock price as well. Speaking of Nebius, there were some rumors this morning, Nebius right there up 3%, of them opening a new data center in Israel. And as a result, you got this right here. The idea is, well, Roman, the co-founder, posted this picture, and it looks like the company is preparing to announce the launch of one of its new data centers, most likely in the UK or Israel. There'll be 4,000 GB200s to begin the partnership in one of those new data centers. Again, just more and more expansion. Nebius, if they can get another one of those Microsoft deals, would be very bullish. Question is if that will end up playing out. SMCI, that one's going green in the pre-markets as well. Rumors of an XAI contract. Look at that. Wow, up 5.4%. So looks like that deal is, or that rumor is coming out right now. SMCI, talk of contract order from XAI circulating, as per Bloomberg. Okay. I mean, look, this is inevitable. Jason and Chris have been saying this for a while, which is that if we're going to sell more GPUs, you're going to need more server racks to be able to handle those GPUs. And Dell increasing their financial guidance double on the top and the bottom line last week was, I think, a signal for SMCI to eventually do the same. And so, SMCI is not the best stock in the world in terms of its margins for every incremental dollar it gets, but it likely will have to grow. Like the pure volume of the amount of server racks and liquid cooling technology they're going to be serving to these GPUs across the entire world has to grow. I mean, it's them, Dell, and HP. So, and we kind of saw this with Micron. Micron was deemed as a commodity, was stuck at 100 for a while, and then demand went up, growth went up. They started showing results, and Micron completely re-rated. So if that does happen with SMCI, which largely hasn't moved that much since Liberation Day, that would be exciting. Meta right there, 723. Amazon 213. Reddit, that's up 3.3%, back above 300 or 200. And then Palantir 180 as well in the pre-markets, which is what we've got. All right, let's talk about some macro stats. So first of all, last week we had some regional financial issues. Western Alliance and Zions reported a couple of faulty loans, and that kind of sent some shocks to the system. Here's a chart right here showing that regional banks are not breaking. If you look at credit issues tied to private credit funds, they're isolated, while net interest income, credit losses, and capital look the strongest in years. And this is one of the charts that shows lending to non-depository financials. As you can see right there, doesn't look like it's in a bad situation compared to historical averages that we've had with non-depository financials. The other thing that's really important about this is that the credit provision losses in Truist and a couple of their banks that reported on Friday, they were great. They were way better than expected. Like way better. Like we're talking about $100 to $200 million less than what expected. It was very similar to what JP Morgan and Citibank said. So I think the regional crisis, again, still continues to be isolated to a couple of banks that produced a couple of faulty loans. It is not endemic of the broader structure of private credit. And as long as that's the case, I think that is not going to be the bear case that breaks this bull market. I mean, there's, I think, plenty of other things that could break this bull market versus the regional banks. But it is something to care about because, private credit is definitely something that could make things bad. It's just there's not enough evidence outside of, one company or two companies showing that there are some issues. So as a result of that, I don't think we should have too many problems with the regional banks. KRE, this thing was down 10% last week. It's up about 1%, recovered 3% on Friday. This one might be the opportunity if we're not going to have too many issues in the private credit ecosystem. SoFi, also very bullish for SoFi. So I decided I will be buying some SoFi before earnings. I don't own any SoFi right now. I'm thinking 500 shares. And the simple logic is, well, I want to have fun if the stock goes up, and I'll share in the misery if the stock goes down. I mean, no, in all seriousness, look, I think Tanner is right that there's going to be a record member quarter. I think those members are probably going to translate into net income that's higher than expected from the street. I think Noto has a chance to put up a 35% growth quarter. Street's expecting 29%. If they get to 40%, I think that would be very bullish. And then finally, the banks are crushing it across the board. Outside of two regional banks, SoFi crushed it. I mean, SoFi will crush it because JP Morgan, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, et cetera, crushed it. SoFi is going to crush it on a smaller scale than those guys, but the rate of growth is going to be faster. It's going to be better. And their underwriting is phenomenal, not to mention crypto's coming back. I don't see the bear case on SoFi. I really don't. Like at this moment, I don't see, and then you have rate cuts coming up. So I think it's going to be a 500 share earnings YOLO, but I don't think we get that ugly of an earnings. And if the stock drops, then the stock drops for whatever reason. They would probably be a buy the dip if the earnings are good. But I think you're probably going to get another triple B. And we shouldn't have that many issues. So we're going to see what happens with SoFi, but that earnings will be happening over the next week. The bear case is that it rose 70% in 3 months. That is fair. If you want to make the bear case about valuation and price action, then 100%. But when a stock usually does that means that their next earnings has to be perfect. I'm not saying SoFi is going to have a perfect earnings, but it doesn't feel like it's going to have the worst earnings in the world. And hopefully that can lead to some more momentum. Also, we were above 30 for a little bit, right? So, maybe if it can normalize above that 30 going into rate cuts. Also, their earnings are a day before the Fed makes their decision. So, I mean, you get a good quarter and then you get rate cuts a day later. It could set up for something explosive, dude. It depends on how well. The way this thing really gets up to 35, 40 is if AWS, a fintech, their Galileo product, starts getting some more growth, more than 10, 12%. I don't think that's going to be this quarter, but I think Noto has some options to really give us a good quarter. And if it does, coinciding with the rate cuts, I don't think that would be too bearish. Speaking of banks, we do have one update on a bank that I did not know about. A lot of the French people in the audience might know about this company, and even if you're not French, you know, if you're in Europe, BNP Paribas, which I'm probably saying the name wrong, had its worst day since March 2023. Was down 10% today. Why? A federal jury found the bank complicit in aiding genocide in Sudan by violating U.S. sanctions, triggering the threat of large contingent liabilities and escalating legal risk. Of course, I said it wrong. Of course. Oh, I said it right? Paribas? You don't pronounce the S? Oh, that's probably true. You don't pronounce the S. It's French, right? But so, you know, you do have some global banks that are not having the best time in the world. But again, you know, the reason I'm bringing this up is like, is this a structural reason the banking sector isn't an issue? No, this is one bank that ended up financing something that they were not supposed to be financing. And as a result, you got a lot of customers. This is the biggest bank in France, by the way. You got a lot of customers saying, hey, like, we don't want our money associated with this. And now you might have some issues in terms of people taking out their assets and leaving somewhere else. Is it something that collapses the banking system? No. Did Zions and Western Alliance last week in the United States collapse the banking system, losing $1 billion in market cap? No. So again, you don't have these massive China structural issues. You don't have these massive banking issues. You've got rate cuts coming up, and then we're hopefully going to have a pretty damn good earnings going into this week with Tesla, Netflix, and a variety of other companies. The bull case still looks pretty strong, as choppy as it's been. And as long as that bull case has room to continue, then I don't think it's going to be that aggressive going into the end of the year. And I think, quite frankly, it's actually making this year this cycle for outperformance way easier, because now stocks aren't at all-time highs. And you kind of need stocks to not be at all-time highs to, you know, get another leg up. So we're going to see how that plays out as we get into the end of this earnings cycle. Dude, you guys have a bunch of different pronunciations. Parabe, Parabe, Peribe. I think that's the one, Peribe, right? Peribe, that's how you say it. But that is weird. I never knew about that bank. And, you know, given all the stuff that happened with regionals, you know, you're seeing some more bank issues. You want to understand, is it an actual broader issue? And if it's not, then, you know, it's not something that maybe too many people have to worry about, which is a good thing. All right, let's get into some other headlines right here. So again, Apple, Counterpoint Research said that Apple's iPhone 17 series outsold the iPhone 16 by 14% in its opening week. So you got a bunch of different updates for Apple and getting some of those more price targets come in, which is very bullish to see. Several media reports saying that Trump is going to be meeting with Kim Jong-un during Trump's Asia trip for the APEC summit. By the way, for anyone who has not watched the 60-minute episode on CBS, the full 56 minutes of it with Jared Kushner yesterday and Steve Witkoff, I would recommend listening to it. I listened to the entire thing last night, and the way they described the diplomacy that was required to get Israel and Hamas and the Turks and the Egyptians to agree to some resemblance of a plan. Will that plan fully be executed over the next 5 years? And will we actually have peace in the Middle East? It's yet to be known. But for them to at least agree to some parts of it, to get the war to come to a ceasefire, I mean, it is quite a journey of what they described. And Jared Kushner was one of the pivotal figures that also allowed or was, you know, incremental in making the Trump Kim Jong-un meeting in 2018 happen. And in 2018, you know, Trump got a lot of shit for stepping over the border and meeting with Kim Jong-un because, you know, no American president ever did it. And this is just my perspective. My perspective is like, hey, he got the job done. Like at some point, if you want to make any resemblance of peace across the entire world, you have to meet with these people. And it comes down to the idea of like, do we want to make a deal or not? There was this really good moment in the CBS special where the interviewer asked Jared Kushner, when you guys asked Trump, hey, if Hamas wants to have a meeting, can we take a meeting with him? What was his response? And Steve Witkoff was like, Trump said, of course, take the meeting. Why wouldn't you take the meeting? It's like, if we have a chance to bring these hostages back home alive, why the hell would we not take that meeting? And the reason it's so controversial is because the United States does not negotiate with terrorist organizations. Hamas is a terrorist organization. But you've got someone like Trump who's like, okay, sure, we don't negotiate with terrorist organizations, but these are 20 hostages that we can bring back to their families. I mean, like if we have to take the meeting, take the damn meeting. And so I think getting into the psychology of Trump, and this is why, you know, he might be wanting to meet with Kim Jong-un, why he's tweeting all these things about China setting up a hopefully stronger negotiation with Xi Jinping, is that at the end of the day, he wants to get a deal done. He wants to get a deal done in whatever way is possible to get a deal done. It's actually listening to that 60-minute interview yesterday, made me pretty optimistic that a China deal is going to get done in a meaningful way. And I think a lot of the back and forth about soybeans and cooking oil and all this nonsense, it is all just hoopla to eventually get to a deal. And I think the Chinese know this, and Trump knows this as well. The stock market is just, going to react to anything that happens whenever Trump says something. But I think we're going to get a deal. And if we get this deal done, that's obviously going to be very, very good for the markets. And, any level of peace in the Middle East is going to be good for the markets. Also, one of the questions they asked Steve Witkoff is, are you guys working on a deal with Russia and Ukraine? Trump met with Zelensky on Friday. That was a productive meeting. He said he had a productive phone call with Putin. The reason this matters for the stock market, if we can get some level of geopolitical stability across the entire world, whether it's in the Middle East or whether it's in Russia, Ukraine, I mean, that is going to aid to the bull case going into the end of the year, as long as we have earnings growth as well. And if we can get that earnings growth, that's not going to be too bad. Speaking of China, GDP growth is pretty damn strong. Take a look at this. China's GDP grew 5.2% in Q3. We got these numbers last night, while high-tech manufacturing expanded 9.6%. Equipment manufacturing rose 9.7%. Industrial robotics output increased 30%, new energy vehicles 30%, and 3D printing equipment 40.1%. Despite the weakest GDP growth in a year, China said its 5% annual target remains within reach. So the fact that China is able to put up 5% growth every year or every quarter and potentially every year, the United States is at 3.3, 3.5%. China is also getting out of a recession, so it's a little bit different. The United States has not really been in a recession, but it is good to see globally a country like China at least start to make some more progress on their GDP growth. And the other reason this is really important is because a lot of that GDP growth is coming because of the U.S. consumer. And if they lose the U.S. consumer, they do not want to go back to a recession because it's not going to be fun for them to be stuck in what they were stuck in over the past couple of years. So it is good to see China getting a bit more momentum here and not have that much pain. Is Amazon Thursday? Amazon is this week, their earnings? No, they're next week, right? Amazon. Yeah, next week. Amazon is next week, if I'm not wrong. Someone can correct me on that. I'm pretty sure Amazon is this week is Netflix and Tesla and IBM. And I think Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Meta, all those guys are the week after. And then the week after that, you have Palantir, Hood, all those companies. 30th, right? 30th. Okay, cool. Amit, that full beard is making you seem smarter. Dude, beard is growing. It's coming back. It's coming back. It has been 2 years since I think I even grew it to this level. So it's coming back, bro. I think we might have the full-on beard come back. And when that happens, then I can really get to know Palantir because, at that point, I'll be a target at that point. All right. Anyway, so let's get into what else is going on in the broader market. This was another thing that was really important in regards to Bloomberg in gold. So let's talk more about gold. Here's what we got from Bloomberg. Emerging markets continue to be a top gold buyer. Poland is actually the largest buyer of gold, 18.7 metric tons. 18.7 metric tons. I mean, when I found this out last night, I was like, what is Poland doing buying the amount of gold that they're buying? And it goes to show that the price of gold, which is now rallied 70%, look at that, back above 4,300. Silver as well, 52.46. That one not slowing down. Silver's down a little bit from 54, but breaking above 50 for the first time in 11 years is pretty incredible. It means a lot of these central banks across the world are buying gold. And this chart right here kind of continues to show that the central bank gold holdings as a percentage of the overall assets are now over 20%. And this is the high share we've seen in nearly 3 decades. Is gold a bubble? That is my question for the chat. Is gold a bubble? Yeah, India has not bought as much gold in Q2 as Poland did, and Kazakhstan and Turkey. And then you have China, which China might be underrepresented in their numbers a little bit. And then the Czech Republic. I mean, it's quite incredible to see the amount of money that is flowing into gold. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bubble, but I would say it's becoming one of those assets that kind of is becoming too big to fail. Now, obviously, if you get such a level of euphoria into it, there is somewhat of a hiccup that happens, but it doesn't look like it's easily slowing down. And if it doesn't easily slow down, then you're going to see a lot more people pile into gold. Doug says, of course, gold is bubble. Gold markets will get dumped when DJT leaves the Oval Office and things get sold off. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a Trump trade right now. Maybe it's a central bank monetary easing trade right now. The 10-year is below 4% in the pre-markets, which is really nice to see. Again, this makes no sense for gold to go up, which is anticipating inflation, and for the 10-year to go down, aka people buying bonds because they are anticipating deflation. Or at least maybe not deflation, but not as high a level as inflation as one would expect if gold was up 70%. I mean, if you told me 2 years ago, gold would be up 70% in 2025, and inflation at the time was what, 8% in 2022, I would tell you, damn, I guess we didn't solve inflation. I think the majority of people, when inflation was 8% in 2022, and you said, hey, I came back from the future, gold is up 70% in 2025, you say, wow, I guess for 3 years we weren't able to get inflation to come down. That's wrong. Inflation has come down to 2.7%. At one point it was at 2.3, and gold is still up at its highest levels ever. It's kind of crazy to see this playing out, but it is playing out. Nick says developing countries could become exit liquidity. I mean, I think there's a lot of factions of the overall global investor community that could become exit liquidity on gold. The question is there like a legit rug pull coming, or is this becoming an asset class that you have to be in if you're not going to be investing in the dollar as much as, you know, people would have invested before? Now the dollar has been it's still down 10% year over year, but it's been flat over the past 5 months, which is good. It's showing that the dollar is not continuing to weaken. But gold going up 70%, or I think gold is up 42% in the past 3 months, and the dollar being flat also is confusing. You would expect the dollar to weaken a little bit more if gold was going up at that rate. Josh says you only see this level prior to major conflicts. And that's another thing. Like, I mean, we've already had multiple major conflicts that are starting to somewhat get resolved in regards to the Middle East and potentially Russia, Ukraine. So unless we're getting a World War III precursor coming up, I don't know what exactly people are getting excited for with gold. Dragon says it's a preservation of wealth. It's not an investment. It's insurance. People are betting against the dollar. I mean, that's fair. But again, you know, this whole idea of people are preserving their wealth. If gold falls 10%, and I wonder how, it's same thing with Bitcoin, right? You know, Bitcoin is seen as a store of value, and then it doesn't store your value, and then people start selling it off, even though eventually it ends up coming back. I wonder if that same thing happens with gold. But gold is indeed having its moment, and we're going to see if that continues over the coming years. All right, we got 2 minutes until the market opens. Let's do the green or red poll. What do we think? Do we go green? Do we go red? I mean, look, I think based on everything we talked about for the past hour, I think we have a green day. Quite frankly, I think we have a green week. This China stuff looks like it's getting resolved. Earnings are going to be pretty good. Earnings have already been phenomenal. As long as earnings can continue on this path, I don't see the reason for why the markets have to sell off this week. But then again, we also have had a really good September, August. You know, we might continue to be in a Choptober versus Uptober. And although we might be having a little recovery right here in the pre-markets from some of the red last week, it might not have to continue. So we are going to see how this ends up playing out. But I do think, I don't know, dude, when you put the pieces to the puzzle together, China escalation shouldn't be that aggressive. Earnings growth should be good. We're getting a rate cut in 2 weeks. And the regional banking crisis, or whatever narrative the market wanted to come up with to tank stocks last week, is just not that real if you look at the data. So it seems like these dips are still opportunities, and now we just got to see how the market ultimately interprets it. All right, here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is Monday, October 20th. We got 11 days left of the month, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is once again open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P 500 opens up 0.5% on the day. Green 667.91. Remember on Friday, it was up and down within like almost 50 different green red opens across the board. There's a massive green candle right there, 668 on the S&P 500. We'll see if that holds any momentum or if that continues. But last week on Friday, it went up, it went down, it went up, it went down, and then it completely got rearranged. So we're going to see if that holds on. Oh, legend, you guys just saw my watch list disappear. You guys just saw it disappear. Let's go to Webull. Maybe AWS continue. Wait, Webull's having problems for you guys now as well? Well, let me see. Those AWS issues might be back, but let's go to Webull. Okay, S&P still moving, 668. So there you go. We are green. That's up 0.5% of the day. SoFi, 2733. That's up about 3%. SoFi chart not loading. SoFi chart not loading. Robinhood chart not loading. Up, they're all down. They're all down. Damn, bro. AWS, I thought the problems were resolved. They should have been fixed like an hour ago. I mean, they were fixed now. We were literally just looking at the chart like 30 seconds ago. Okay, I think Robinhood's back. Weeble's done. Robinhood should be back. Okay, S&P, that's up 0.5%. AMD, that's up 2%. SoFi, that's up 3%. Google, that's up 0.5%. Grab, that's up 2%. Bitcoin and Ethereum back over 4,000 and 110,000. TLT, that's up a little bit. Circle, that's up 2.5. MicroStrategy, that's up 2.97. YouTube just crashed for you a minute ago. Wow. Yeah, you're getting a bunch of different issues throughout the day. Roblox, that's up 1%. CrowdStrike, that's up 1.3%. Rocket Lab, okay, there was something we didn't talk about in the pre-markets, but the Secretary of Transportation came on CNBC in the pre-markets, and he said that SpaceX is behind on the contract that was initially awarded to them to get back to the moon. And so he is opening up the contract for any space company to bid, including Blue Origin. And I think that's why Rocket Lab is up 3% right here, because if they bid to potentially get back to the moon, I mean, that would be a massive contract for a company of their scale. And, you know, Sean Duffy, he didn't hesitate to say that SpaceX is being slow. And it was kind of a public call out for other companies to compete for this. So that could be a reason why Rocket Lab's getting some momentum. ASTS as well. This was 84 in the pre-markets, 86.49. That is also green. A lot of you guys are having some issues across the brokerages. Very weird, but at least Legend is not messing up too badly right now. Intel, that's at 37.93. Disney's up a little bit. Square is up a little bit. Duolingo just went red. DoorDash, that's up about 1%. Red Cat, that's up 3.2%. How about Iren, the Bitcoin miners? No, it's barely searching for me, dude. It's not even pulling up a ticker. Yahoo's down too. Does everything run on AWS? Goodness gracious. 61.49 on Iren. That's up 1.3. Regionals are, if they're ever going to load, probably green, but they're not going to load. Let me go back to Webull and see if we can load something up. Webull is not loading anything either. Damn, bro. AWS controls the internet. AWS controls the internet. This is wild. This is wild. I mean, let's see if we can go to another website and see if we can get some of these tickers. TradingView, is that working? Kinda. TradingView is working. Not as much. Let me go back to Webull, see if we got some Thinkorswim works. Yeah, Chad right there. AWS outage in the East Coast. Dude, but I thought it was resolved a couple hours ago because everything was working, but I guess there is still some pain right here. It's like working on Robinhood. It's just slow. It's just like really slow. Now it's getting back to a little bit normal. NVIDIA, that's down 0.5%. Where is Amazon with this? Amazon's actually up on this, 214. So Amazon not losing too much pain from this, but it's green. Chat says there was a mitigation put in place. All right, so hopefully it doesn't end up continuing throughout the entire day. PayPal right there, that's up 1%. Salesforce up 1.6%, and the Meta, that's up 1% as well. Fidelity and Schwab are working good. All right, so it seems like Webull, Hood, and Yahoo Finance are some of the big ones that are affected by this. S&P, though, look at that, 668. Folks, if we get back to 670, all-time highs were 673 before this whole China disaster started in regards to the back and forth of rhetorical, I guess, insults towards one another, which have started to de-escalate. That happened 2 weeks ago. I mean, 673 is not that far away. If we can get back above 670, that would be very nice to see. BMNR, we'll see how that one loads up. SMCI 56, all right. SMCI, that XAI contract being a rumor and getting that one to be a bit more exciting. Legend, unfortunately, is not loading, or it's very slow. Bitmine 5213. 5213. Why is NVIDIA red? I'm not even sure why NVIDIA is red on the day. I mean, Jensen had a really good interview on Fox yesterday, got a lot more people to understand the broader NVIDIA thesis. However, it is NVIDIA, and it goes up and down for random reasons. It is weird, though, because all the semis are green. I mean, pretty much all the semis, including Micron, SMCI, et cetera, are green. So not sure why NVIDIA isn't really following here. That one is red. Okay, I think maybe we switch to TradingView for now to look at some of these charts, because otherwise this stuff is being a bit weird. Now, I don't use TradingView like crazy, but let's pull it up. We'll just search the tickers. I don't have watch lists on this. I guess I should set up watch lists as a backup on TradingView just in case this stuff happens. So here's Amazon right here. 214.48. That one's still green. Palantir getting a little bit of red as well. Palantir, Palantir just went green. 178.63. That's up slightly as we open. AppLovin, that's dumping. Not sure why AppLovin is dumping. I mean, the SEC probe continues to be an issue. These guys were at 610 last week. AppLovin, wow, down 4%, right back down to 575. I took a swing trade on this at 578, sold it at 598. But this one not really getting back above those levels. 574 at these areas. BABA, how is China doing? BABA right here, that's at 168, down a little bit. Okay, let me see if Legend is getting back to normal. No, Legend still sucks, dude. AWS really took the back. Okay, so it's annoying for like the stream because we can't see the stocks, but I would imagine people that are trying to trade are way more annoyed because they might not be able to access their positions. Let me know if anyone's having some. Yeah, I mean, I just logged on to the brokerage. It's barely loading. I mean, not the best look, dude. Obviously, you know, Hood is going to blame Amazon for this, which they should, but nonetheless, it is dicey when people can't get out of these positions. Same thing for Webull. You got a lot of traders on Webull. SoFi chart barely loading on Webull still. Ethereum's not even loading either. Webull's frozen again. Some of you guys saying my Robinhood is just fine. It just goes to show how freaking important some of these companies are. I mean, at the end of the day, like, and again, Robinhood put out a notice on their app that AWS was having issues, and they said the issues have been resolved like an hour ago. So the fact that the issues came back just goes to show how aggressive it might be. Hoodie is up 4%, row 135.80 or 134.82, so that's green. And then S&P 668.85, trying to get back to 669. Chad says, and it shows how fragile most software is. Yeah. It shows how fragile most software ends up becoming and why companies actually have to pay to get quality. Now, again, if you're not in the Northeast, you might not be having these issues. I think it is isolated to Amazon Northeast, which is a big section of the country. But obviously, if you're not in the Northeast, you're probably not having that many issues. Bitcoin 110, SoFi 2740, Hood 134.94, Nvidia still flat on the day, or sorry, red on the day. Bank of America, that's down. And then Morgan Stanley, that's up 1.16%. Ethereum at least above for that. It's bad in Texas too. Oh shit. Wait, no, I thought it was just Northeast. Oh, but if all the services run on Northeast servers, it doesn't matter if you're located in the Northeast, your shit's still gonna get hurt. Ah, okay, that makes sense. Northeast is just where the servers are. Oh, I'm stupid. I thought if you're in the Northeast, it has an impact. But if the servers are in the Northeast, you know, it doesn't matter where the hell you live. Okay, so Houston's having issues. Kansas is bad. Miami's bad. All right, shit. So what do we talk about then? What do we? You guys want to hear some jokes? I mean, you know, your boy is entering his comedian arc. I'm trying to test out some material anyway. Down in Arkansas, down in San Diego, down in down in Scotland, down in Greece. Goodness gracious, bro! Freaking Amazon. This stock should be freaking down 10%. Let us buy it cheaper if it's going to wreck the entire world. Goodness gracious. Down in Memphis, down in Wisconsin, down in Norway. Dude, I'm really stupid. When I saw Northeast, I was like, oh, if you live in the Northeast, you have some problems. But if you're anywhere else, you're okay. No, it's like the servers are in the Northeast for the majority of the world, or potentially for a majority of a lot of places in the world. And it could obviously affect a lot of the world at that point. AMD 236, SoFi, that's up 3.5%. Any statement from AWS? You know, I didn't see anything in the morning. Let's see if they tweeted anything about it. Surprisingly, Twitter is not down as much. So I guess maybe some of their servers aren't isolated in the Northeast. No, they haven't. Dude, they're tweeting about this random dude talking about advancing DevOps with Amazon Nova. No one cares about that shit, dude. We want We want to just get our internet back to normal. This could give Microsoft even a bigger pump potentially. I'm surprised Amazon hasn't come out and said anything about this either. It is kind of weird. SMCI up 7%. That's getting some love. Yeah, that was 3 days ago. That tweet is old too. They haven't even updated. MicroStrategy is up 3.6, and then Microsoft, that's up 0.5%. X doesn't use AWS for their primary services. Okay, that makes sense. Hood is working fine for you. Legend's okay. I mean, let me search Uber. No, look at that. I can't even get to the Uber. It won't even search it up. It takes a good minute for it to show up. That's crazy, bro. We are so accustomed to speed and efficiency in 2025. Like, we just need it to happen. And if it doesn't, we start complaining. And these tech companies usually live up to the challenge to support us. But when they don't, all hell breaks loose. NVIDIA right there, 182.77. That is also trying to break out to go green. Rocket Lab, 70. Rocket Lab, okay. Rocket Lab, again, that NSA deal or that NASA opening up of the contract is definitely something that's getting the market excited. There you go, back to 70, 70.10 on Rocket Lab. Just restart your computer. Exactly. Chat says, think about all the manufacturing companies running their SAP instance in US East 1 and can't operate. Yeah, dude, we're talking about a market open that's having some issues. I mean, there's a lot of other companies out there that have much more important things to be doing right now that likely can't operate. That is wild, bro. Some of these, I mean, CrowdStrike proved it to us back in August of 2024. And, I don't think this is, well, we're going to see, but it doesn't seem like it's as aggressive as the CrowdStrike outage was. But it is just a reminder of how technologically intertwined the entire world is. SoFi right there up 4%. And how fragile systems of software are as well. Iren, that's up 1%. Navitas breaking 17. This one hasn't had an incredible run. Jose's only warning about this was that make sure that on earnings, they actually give you specific details about their partnership with NVIDIA, because if they don't, that's where the streak can get a little iffy. But right now, the stock has basically gone from 9 to 17 on a narrative re-rating with their work with NVIDIA. And so earnings will be important for them. The VIX is down 6%. That's also really nice to see the VIX taking a hit. And then TFC, another regional bank, that's up 1%. Elon's clowning AWS on X. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine GCP and Microsoft try to take advantage of this in a bunch of different ways, potentially by luring people off of AWS. It also goes to show how massive AWS is compared to some of those other guys. Like, this is not the first time AWS has had issues. I mean, Google literally had issues a week ago, right, when YouTube shut down. But when AWS goes down, the entire world feels it. Reddit is up 5%, and then Amazon's still up 0.5% right there. Yeah, a lot of people saying my app is not working. Most of Amazon.com is running on DynamoDB. AWS, Perplexity, Snapchat, Fortnite, Airtable, Canva, Amazon Slack, half the internet is affected. Damn, that's wild, dude. There must be, I mean, this could also affect the market right here, because there might be people that are trying to make trades, or they can't make trades. And as a result, you might just not have certain types of liquidity entering the market right now. And those trades might be affected for later throughout the day. I mean, I would imagine a bunch of hedge funds also run a lot of services on something like AWS. Ethereum right there, 4,000. S&P trying to break 669. We touched it for a second. Couldn't hold on to it. Amazon still at 214. And then Google at least breaking 255. Yeah, Hood stock not affected by this, but a lot of you guys are saying you can't make trades. And I mean, let me try to reload my Robinhood app. It was barely loading before. Yeah, it's barely loading. You had a lot of the Ethereum bulls come out, and they were like, well, Ethereum never has downtime, and this is the bull case for Ethereum. And like, okay, that's fine, but Ethereum also doesn't handle the type of workloads that AWS handles. I like Ethereum too, but a lot of these ETH maxes are like, this is why you need a distributed, decentralized server process to, I'm like, bro, Shut up. Like a decentralized ecosystem like Ethereum is not going to be managing half the internet. Like, what are we talking about here? But it does mean that when Amazon does, we need to make sure, the shit doesn't get hit. Robinhood right there, 135.66, still going up. I'm surprised Hood stock is up. You would think it would be getting hit just based on the weakness in the app being able to function right now. But that one's still moving. Amcor as well, got the Jensen mention. That's up 4%. Grab's up 1%. Oklo up another 1% as well. Coinbase is also down, by the way. So Coinbase is, let me know if you guys have an issue with the Coinbase, but in the morning, a lot of people were having issues on Coinbase. Shopify, I can't see that stock right now. Nvidia. Wait, what about Google? Could I just go to Google to look at some of these stocks? Yeah, I should be able to, right? Yeah. Okay. I guess we're going to go to Google. Shop is up 3.3. Dude, Google needs to build like a Webull competitor or like a, I mean, I know they have Google Finance, but well, I don't use this too much, but if they could design something with like a watch list that is similar to Webull or something, or even Legend, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I've never used this one before. This is the classic one. Palantir, 178.26. Google has a 15-minute delay. Well, no, I think that delay started to get fixed after a couple of adjustments they made over the past couple of weeks. Because now you see the tickers update in real time. Here's the heat map for what we've got going on. I guess FinWiz doesn't run on AWS, but everything's pretty much green across the board. Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Google, Meta, Broadcom. NVIDIA is the only one that's down. Microsoft's up. I mean, look, this is a pretty green day to start the market. AppLovin's down and Oracle's down and Qualcomm. Outside of that, everything else is green. Yeah, Snapchat's not working either. That happened in the pre-market as well. Okay, is Webull coming back a little bit? No, Webull's still dead. Let's see if Legend's coming back a little bit. All right, Legend is getting way faster. At least searching on the tickers is faster. AMD, that's up 1.2. SoFi, that's up 5. Google, that's up 1. Grab, that's up 1.4. Baba, that's down 0.5%. Only update on Grab is their COO did an interview over the weekend. This is like the 7th interview that executives have been doing in the past month. So I think the fact that they're engaging with the media more means that, they're ready to start bringing the company more into the public. And that should be good for Q3 results. But ultimately, we're going to have to see. Yup, Legend just died on me. Legend just died on me. It's coming back slowly. It's wild, bro. Absolutely wild. Rocket Lab, at least, is still making its move. Again, based on this idea that NASA contracts are going to open up to go back to the moon. Bitmine, 53.52. That's up 7%. SoFi, 28. I have not bought my shares yet. I was thinking of buying more in the low 27s. We'll see if we have a chance throughout the week. If not, we'll pull the trigger. But SoFi right there, at least that is up 5% on the day. No one can sell anything, so stocks only go up. That it's a joke, but that's also like legit. Like if people can't sell, you might have nothing else to do but have some of these stocks go higher. But that means they might end up selling when the services come back, and you could have a big intraday swing. Okay, let me pull this up right here. This is a link to Amazon services and the health of these services. Oh, here are all the updates. What time is it right now? It's 9. Okay, so this was 8 minutes ago. We have applied multiple mitigations across availability zones in US East 1 and are still experiencing elevated errors for new EC2 instance launches. We are rate limiting new instance launches to aid recovery. We will provide an update at 7:30, which is 10:30, or sooner if we have additional information. Damn, bro. That's wild. That's wild. Yeah, this is also why when the socialists are like, hey, we need to nationalize everything, it's like, bro, if private companies are having these type of issues, you think the government's going to be able to operate distributed servers across the world? It's Amazon or bust, bro. This shit's either going to work or it's not going to work. Chat says an AWS region is actually dozens of data centers in that region. Each is called an availability zone. So even though they fixed the root cause, the coming back online is hampered. All right. Well, Chad, thank you for helping explain this to us. Pound right there, 179.12. It's coming back slowly, but still a bit slower than expected. Amazon right there, 214.65. Is SoFi having issues? I don't use SoFi, but let me know in the chat. I think most of you, let me know if anyone's having issues with SoFi. I don't think they're necessarily having too many issues, but I don't use the app, so I'm not sure. SoFi right there, 448. No, Tesla's 448. SoFi's at 28. No SoFi issues? Okay, so SoFi's not having problems. Didn't SoFi just announce a partnership with Amazon, though? That doesn't mean they use it, but they announced something with AWS like 2 days ago, which leads me to believe they might be using it. Oh, Galileo announced something with AWS. Okay. Maybe that's not the actual Invest app itself. Yeah, Fidelity, Schwab, and JP Morgan, along with E-Trade and SoFi, look like they're good. Webull, Hood are the main ones that got hit. The main ones that got hit. Apple's at 259. Again, the street is very excited about this iPhone 17 upgrade cycle. Oil down another 1% on the day. Let me know if you bought iPhone 17s or any version of the iPhone 17. Counterpoint Research saying that the first 10 days is up 14% compared to iPhone 16. That is a massive move for something like Amazon or for something like Apple. And, you're probably going to see some share up performance if they can deliver results. This is what Robinhood said at 4 a.m. AWS, one of our third-party vendors, is experiencing an outage, which is affecting Robinhood services. We're aware of the issue and we will update once resolved. So that was at 4 a.m., but still some of those issues are there. Wow, a decent chunk of you saying, yes, bought the new phone. It really looks like it was an upgrade cycle for the vast majority of people that were on like iPhone 14, iPhone 15. Apple right there up 3% on the day. Look at that. Potentially breaking 260. Dude, when this thing was at 180, how many people thought it would easily in the next 3 months get up to 260? This thing was in the gutter. Fortunately, we have it in the stock draft right here. Update on that is Matt is up 50%. Goodness, he's crossed 50 all time. I'm at 37. We're up 30% on Apple. Steve's at 8. Tanner's at 21. Chris is at 11. ABCL, Rocket Lab, ASTS, and Celsius are the big winners for Matt. People with iPhone 14, 15 have had enough battery performance decline. They need to get a new phone. Yeah, that's why I got the iPhone 16. My 15 was just getting ridiculous, and I had to end up leaving. SMCI, that's up 7%. Lockheed Martin, that's up a little bit. IBKR, doesn't look like people are having too many issues with IBKR either. That's up. And then TTD is up. Hoodie still up 5% on the day, even with this AWS issue. This thing got to 122 last week, so you are seeing a little bit more excitement right now. Yes, Evercore does have a 290 Apple price target. They've always been pretty bullish on Apple. And then there was another bank, I forgot the name of the bank, but they came out with a freaking 320? No, 319 price target, 310 price target as well. Okay, let's see what other headlines that we have. Trump is going to be speaking at 11 a.m. today. Not sure why, but he'll be speaking at 11 a.m. We talked about the China GDP forecast. Goldman Sachs projecting a 0.3% CPI rise for September with core inflation at 3.1%. So they're expecting it to not be up as aggressively as some of the other targets have. NVIDIA trying to break even right there. S&P 669, high of day on the S&P. Nebius, are we getting a dump? Nebius is getting a dump, 112. How about CoreWeave? CoreWeave, 134. That's also down 2%. That is also down 2%. Yeah, dude, a lot of people having issues with Webull as well. Let me see if my phone loads up. Broken. So Legend is a little bit faster. Phone's still bad. Phone's still bad. Can't buy or sell. Can't buy or sell. AMD, is that one green? AMD was at 240 last week. AMD 237. Dude, a lot of you guys use Webull. Just based on the comments I'm seeing of the amount of people complaining about Webull. I didn't know that many people use Webull. Decent chunk of you guys getting annoyed with this Webull thing. Oh, Trump's meeting with the Australian Prime Minister at 11 a.m. Okay, cool. So I guess we'll be having a meeting then. Silver and gold. Oh, they're talking about Robinhood on CNBC right now. Let's switch over to them, see what they're saying. Silver and gold are slightly up for the day. They were down on Friday after the China stuff. It was so weird. Gold and silver went down when the China stuff de-escalated last week, but now they're up. But the China stuff still de-escalated based on what Trump said last night. So I don't know. It's a weird trade that's going in a variety of different directions. Okay, let's see what they're saying here.
That I would say everything that's contrary to investing, a lot of it's based there, and it's because of younger people, and I think they offer such a great IRA plan. They've done everything they can to be as responsible as possible, but people just go there and they buy. This is where all the rare earth is bought and the nuke is bought.
Okay, so Kramer's complaining that retail is basically buying stupid shit on Robinhood. Look, he's not totally wrong. I mean, there's probably a decent chunk of people buying the stuff that's been rallying for no reason on Hood. But I also don't think that's not happening. I mean, dude, the top 5 stocks that were bought in September on Schwab: NVIDIA, Meta, Palantir, Amazon, and Opendoor. So, like, if the Schwab people are buying, it was a top 5 stock in September, Opendoor on Schwab. Like, I think it's a little lazy to say all the buying is happening on Robinhood. Not saying that there's not a lot of people loading up on Oklo on Robinhood. I'm just saying I don't think it's only Robinhood. Now, 5 years ago, it likely would have only been Robinhood, but retail has vastly developed since then. And there's a lot more retail investors that don't use Robinhood, but still, choose to speculate on some of those names. So it's not that crazy to me to imagine that some of that buying would be happening in other areas. Opendoor, speaking of that stock, price currently is $738, up 3% as we get into the open. Dude, this kind of sucks. It messes up the whole flow of the show. I'm sorry, guys. This is just one of those market opens where we're not going to be able to easily flow with everything else. I mean, we kind of need these tickers loading instantly to get through all the updates we have. So it might just be one of those days, and hopefully we can fix it by the close. I probably need to, dude, I don't really use TradingView or Yahoo Finance. I guess I need to educate myself on those platforms in case this stuff happens, so I can just easily pull up this stuff just never happens. Like, we never have an issue with where Webull, like, if Hood is messed up, I go to Webull. If Webull's being stupid, I go to Hood. Usually they're both my backups. But when both of them go down, I'm like, well, I don't know what else to use. I don't really use anything else. Like, I don't spend a lot of time training myself on how to use other watch list platforms. I just pick one and use it. That's it. And yeah, Yahoo Finance is also still down for a lot of people. It's just weird. I should probably learn TradingView, though. I mean, I've been doing Technical Tuesday for like a year with Jason. I need to 2026. That I know I said 2025. One of my goals was to get better at TA, but then a lot of shit just ended up happening in 2025. I think 2026. One of my goals is to actually be able to do some real TA by myself without having to need Jason to explain it to me. Bitmine 54. Okay, is that because ETH is moving up? Is that because of ETH? No, ETH is flat. Bitmine's moving up and ETH is flat. Wow. We haven't seen that happen in a couple of weeks. But Bitmine up almost 9% and Ethereum not really doing anything. TradingView doesn't have overnight hours data. Yeah, it's weird, right? Like, people don't love the charts on Hood. They love the charts on TradingView, but they love a lot of other stuff on Hood that TradingView doesn't have. I always thought Hood should buy TradingView, but TradingView is about $3-4 billion. I don't know if that would be the best use of their capital. It's just there's a lot of stuff people love about TradingView that is hard for them to use on Hood. Tom Lee is hacking the servers right now. No, but dude, given how volatile Bitmine's been, it hasn't really. Right now, the multiple is expanding. When the asset is doing nothing, aka staying flat, and the treasury stock is going up, the MNAV is expanding. Why is the MNAV expanding today? I don't know. I mean, yeah, they bought more Ethereum, but outside of that reason, I don't know why they would be getting an increased multiple on a day like this. Amit, could you do a TA versus fundamental poll? Yeah, let's do that. Let's do TA. Okay, so the question is, if you had to pick between the one you use more often, by the way, 85% of you said will be green today. Joe made a good point in the chat. If retail can't buy stocks today and we're green, you're probably getting a lot of institutional buys that are coming in, which is also really bullish to see. Do you use TA or fundamentals more? Fundamentals, TA, or both. Now, if you pick both, click both if you honestly use both, like 50-50. But if you have to pick which one is like 70-30, for me, it's like 90-10 fundamentals over TA. But I am curious to see kind of the breakup of this. 53% say fundamentals, 13% say TA, 31% say both. All right, so decent majority, obviously, of fundamentals, but still a decent mix across the board. Apple's still up 2.7, Tesla's up 1.9, and then Palantir 180 on the day. There were a couple macro charts, so let me go to that, and then we'll get back to some of the legend stuff and see if it comes back to normal. So I shared some of this stuff last night. First of all, here's a new chart. U.S. debt continues to reach all-time highs, $98.8 trillion in Q2 of 2025. It's a lot of debt. Federal government rose to $35.6 trillion in Q2, but the most recent data shows it has reached $37.5 trillion, or 123% of GDP. Now, Japan is about 250% of GDP on a debt to GDP ratio. The United States is at 130%. We're better than Japan, but we're not that much better if we continue on this path. So obviously, debt payments continue to stack up, and hopefully we can grow ourselves out of this mess. Leveraged ETFs, 701 of them exist in October of 2025. So we have massive leverage that continues to enter the system. Now, the overall AUM of these leveraged ETFs is about 100 billion. So, I mean, even if these ETFs were to go to zero, maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for the broader market. But nonetheless, there is a ton of leverage in these ETFs in the system. And that goes to the second point, which is that there's a ton of margin that is also in the system. If you take a look at this chart right here, margin debt is officially at an all-time high. 1.13 trillion as of September 2025. It's up 67 billion in 1 month. So you're getting margin debt that is month over month increasing by tens and tens of billions of dollars. Every time margin debt got to these levels, it ended up being a top to the market. I think there's a lot of reasons why we're probably not at a top to the market in terms of all the different things we have going on with rate cuts and earnings growth. But it does mean that people are borrowing money to be able to go long assets. And if those assets continue to go higher, rates continue to go lower, aka the cost of borrowing that capital continues to become cheaper, and earnings continue to perform and outperform, quite frankly, then the margin might not be as ugly of an issue as it has been historically. But we're going to have to see how the broader market performs to see what happens with that margin. Robinhood right there, up 135.93, Palantir at 180, SoFi 5%, I think. I was just about to say, I think Legend's getting faster. Then I click on one name and the chart's barely loading. So never mind. But I thought it was getting faster. Google right there, that's also up 1% on the day. Wow, Fannie and Freddie, that's up 8% as well. MongoDB, that's up 3%. You do have green across the board. There's not that many names that are red. Elf is red by 5%. AppLovin's down by 6%. CoreWeave's down 1%. Nebis is down 1%. Duolingo, I did a deep dive on Duolingo on the Substack. Again, thank you for everyone who took the time to read the Duolingo and BM&R article. I mean, look, after doing that deep dive, it's hard to be super bearish about Duolingo. Like, genuinely, I don't think there is such a egregious bear case that at this price means this thing has to go back down to the, to the 150s. It's just not the most compelling bull case either. I mean, there is a compelling bull case. It's just the way I look at it, the TAM is not that exciting to be attracted to a network effect company versus like an Uber, for example, that just has a more aggressive TAM, or even a Netflix when it comes to content. So I do think Duolingo eventually gets back into the 400s. I don't know if they can get rid of that AI overhang narrative that's on top of them. TFC, that's up 1% of the day. IWM, small caps, actually up 1.3%. Which is not too bad. Where is Iren? Are we still above 60? Wow, Iren goes below 60, loses 60. That Iren usually leads the Bitcoin miners. So if Iren's taking a hit, you might start to see the other guys go red. Yeah, Bitfarms, it's not red yet, but it's 7 cents away from going red. Clean Spark, which was up 12%, now up 10%. And the other ones might go red as well. Cypher 1980, that one's still slightly green. Quantum is red. QBTS, are we red on Quantum? We are down 2%. IONQ down 1%. And Rigetti 2.85% down. All right, so the Quantum names are red. And then Tesla getting some love. What do we think? Tesla, are we making a move on Wednesday? We'll do more of a preview as we get into earnings. We talked about it last night. My simple thoughts on Tesla is I don't know what the company is going to be able to say to get the market to be super excited. Like, I just don't know if there's enough that they can do to get the stock to actually make all-time highs. I mean, the fact that it's even holding the 430s, 440s, I think is important. For it to bust out into the 500s, I don't know. I think there needs to be a little bit more earnings growth. And that stuff probably we're not going to see until 2026. Energy is going to be good, but energy is not a massive contributor to the bottom line. Tesla right there up 1.8%. Google, that is up 1% as well. BT is ripping. That is another ETH treasury. Wow, 17%. Okay. So you're getting some action there. That's weird. Why are all the ETH treasuries going up, but ETH is staying flat? You might have someone who's buying a ton of these right now. Maybe an institution coming in and establishing some positions. Or maybe just retail can't sell, and maybe that's what's happening. But there's something going on. Joby as well, up 4.5%. Doug says, odd that previous days' problems were that liquidity issues stopped the new generation online trading platforms from working. Now that there is liquidity, retail is still locked out. Yeah, it's weird, dude. It's very, very weird how it's affecting it. But also, I mean, if you chalk it up to AWS, then some of these platforms that just aren't using AWS aren't affected. Yeah, ETH is up over the weekend, but ETH is not up that much. Like, ETH is up enough for Bitmine to probably be at 50, 52 maybe. Breaking out to almost 55 is assuming ETH is closer to 42, 4,300. And, that's not what we're seeing right now. Trump is live. Is he actually live? No. If you're looking at the feed where he's talking on Air Force One, that was last night. So he's not actually live right now. Let's get some updates from China and hear what's going on there in terms of their GDP growth, and then we'll keep going from there.
And also the slowest level in about a year. Just shows some of the pressures that have been building on the Chinese economy, something that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent actually said in an interview last week as to some of their motivation for why they're acting tougher when it comes to the trade situation. Just to break it down further, what you see is retail sales are weak. 3% was less than expected. The consumer's been sluggish in China. What's strong? Industrial production. Their export machine is still going and powering ahead, up 6.5% on the year. And we saw in export data last week that they're finding new markets outside the U.S. Exports are plunging to the U.S., but they're booming in places like Africa and the rest of Asia and even Europe. They've been higher. So that's what's keeping their economy. But the really weak number was actually fixed investment for China, which saw a drop. And that's problematic for the world's second biggest economy. So it gives you a little bit sense of what's going on there beneath the surface as we wonder about where these trade tensions lie at this point.
Yeah, we were just talking with Jim about the Semblus note from last week.
All right, so China GDP growth, not the best in the context of the consumer. Overall manufacturing is starting to get a bit more momentum, which is kind of what uplifted that GDP. Again, a lot of that manufacturing, that's because the U.S. is buying all their stuff, which means they need the U.S. consumer as much as we need their labor. And hopefully that gets us closer to a deal. By the way, look at the S&P, folks. We are 30 cents from touching 670. I know it's been a weird morning with all the brokerage outages, but if we touch 670, I mean, we are pretty damn close at that point to all-time highs. Pretty damn close, which would be very nice to see as we get towards the end of October. 669 right there on the S&P. Yeah, grab 567. Grab, the shorts are in control right now. I mean, the volume has pretty much died out. The shorts continue to manipulate. So until they have an earnings, which really gets the shorts to leave the stock, I think the stock's probably not really going to make a move. Or they make an announcement of what they're doing with their cash. But again, that probably happens within the earnings cycle. Remember, Q3, the stock was at 350 last year. It went all the way up to 570 because they increased their adjusted EBITDA forecast. I think they do the exact same this Q3. I don't know if the stock runs up to like 750, which would be an equivalent move, but I do think the shorts potentially stop manipulating it, which would help. Nvidia, that's back to red. Tesla, that's up 2. S&P trying to break 670, but not fully getting up there yet. Wow, Nebius. Why is Nebius getting hit? They had a good update this morning about a new data center. Down 4%. I mean, look, you can't complain too much. Nebius stock year to date is still up 250%, but it was at 137 last week. Is this a buy the dip, guys? To all my Nebius bulls, is this a buy the dip? Is this like a nibble? Is this like a 10 share nibble? Or is this weighted out because it's going below 100? What do we think? Oracle margin. Dude, the Oracle margin news is nonsense, though. The Oracle margin stuff was even disproved last week. Like, why is Oracle at the heart of all these issues? Yeah, the problem, I'm looking at the headline right now about Oracle margins. The other issue with the Oracle margin stuff is a lot of it's not accounting for future growth. A lot of it's only accounting for the things they've already set up in those data centers, which are margin intensive because you have to incur a lot of costs to be able to set up those data centers in the first place. I mean, literally on their freaking investor day, I'm looking at the chart right here, they guided for 30 to 40% non-GAAP gross margins. This is much higher than the 15% that the information reported 2 weeks ago that sent Oracle down like 10%. I don't know. That's weird. It's weird that Nebius is getting hit on this. Nebius 108.82, and then CoreWeave, I think, is also getting hit at the same time. Uber, that's down 1%. 133. CoreWeave down 3. Yes, Robinhood's still having issues. I still can't even look at that. I mean, it's not even, won't even load. There is a notice in the app that it's because of AWS, but still. This must be fascinating for like all the people that are into data science, engineers, people that work on the cloud. I mean, like that like just seeing how much the world is affected by this stuff. Like it goes to show how important a lot of these services are, but it also goes to show how crucial it is to understand how the internal dynamics of how this stuff works, because it affects literally everything. Amazon, though, is up 1% on the day. Amazon trying to crack 215 right here, even with all this playing out. I think it's because on the CrowdStrike thing, it felt like just negligence, like someone was really stupid and a mistake was made, and then, airlines shut down. With Amazon, it feels like it's, I mean, I still don't know exactly what the reason for it is, but it doesn't feel like someone pushed the wrong button and it was like negligence. It's more like it's just a maintenance issue. Yeah, we'll get a status update in 15 minutes, correct? And then we'll see what Amazon has to say. Amit, in the event that the market was tanking and you're unable to access your brokerage, how do you go about holding companies accountable? I mean, look, it depends, right? Like, is it Robinhood's fault? Is it Weeble's fault? Or is it freaking Amazon's fault? I mean, I don't know, dude. Do I really hold them? I don't know. It's a tricky question. If the market's tanking and I'm trying to sell and Amazon is down, therefore I can't sell, it's hard for me to blame Robinhood on that. Now, if Robinhood's down, then you give you're talking about class action lawsuits out the wazoo. But if it's something else, I mean, again, it's just, and it's not like Robinhood's running on some random cloud service. Like, this is freaking Amazon. This is something that Robinhood probably pays a lot of money to AWS every month, hoping that this shit doesn't happen. Granted, I mean, look, I'm not a cloud expert, but is there a generator in this shit? Like, is there a backup or something, right? Like, when the power goes out, you have a generator. Do we have a separate cloud that we can use sometimes or something? Feels like that would be helpful in situations like this. Are you saying Amazon is class action lawsuits coming? I mean, it depends, dude. It depends. CrowdStrike had a ton of them because CrowdStrike legit had a negligence problem. With Amazon, we don't know I don't know exactly why this is happening, but maybe there is some broader concern. with how this ended up playing out and they get sued. I don't think a VPN would fix this, guys. I don't think if I get on a VPN and change my location, that will change anything necessarily. Feels like it's a broader issue that's going on. Could be a power issue. Dude, if it's a if Amazon says the reason this happened was because data centers were creating too much load on the cloud and there was an energy issue, that would be wild. That would be absolutely wild. I mean, it would once again go to show that energy is definitely in a tougher situation than not. All right, let's see if we can get some of these other tickers loading up. So S&P still trying to make back to 670 levels. Archer's up 2%. GameStop's up 1%. Lockheed's up 1%. Nubank's up 2.2, 1533. Admit this is a CrowdStrike moment. It is a CrowdStrike moment, but the stock is not down 30% like CrowdStrike. That's the problem. Like, we can't really buy the dip on this because there is no dip that we're seeing. Salesforce 249, that's up a little bit, and then Meta. Wow, Meta making a move back to 730. This thing was at 690 last week. It's a nice little recovery there. And then SMCI was up 7%. Now it's up 5%. BMNR, we still holding 54. ETH is still slightly down. BMNR 53. All right, so Bitmine going down as well. Iran and Cypher dumping. Well, Cypher's still up, down from its highs. Iran officially goes down 2.4%. Here's the other thing about when the market potentially gets back to all-time highs. And I would love to know perspectives in the chat right here. If the market goes back to all-time highs, so let's go to 673. Let's just call it 675. And Oklo goes back to 195. Do you think we're in a healthy bull market? Oklo down 4%. Because I don't think we are. I mean, like, look, it's still a bull market that Oklo is not going to ruin. But I think if Oklo stays stuck at 150 and the S&P gets to 675, it's a lot healthier. AKA a lot of the stuff that's been running for no reason. If that stuff kind of stays in the graveyard, metaphorically, while the rest of the market goes back up, I think that would be a very, very healthy thing to see. If everything just goes back to going bonkers, I mean, it's going back to being a clownish market. Like, you don't want the meme stocks running like crazy just because the broader market recovers. You want a lot of those stocks to get flushed out. The question is, do you need like a 10% S&P drawdown to flush those names out? Or can those names get flushed out independent of the market? Like, if quantum goes back to the moon when the S&P gets to all-time highs, I don't think that's the healthiest. So I would be curious to see, can we make all-time highs but leave the stuff that was stupid to be stupid? And what I mean by that is not saying the companies are stupid, just saying the runs they were having made no sense. I feel like it'd be better if those names don't run. And I think it'd be better for all of us, dude. Especially if you're in some of those names, because if you want, a quantum stock to stay up 4,000%, you probably don't need it to keep going up every day. You probably need it to consolidate and normalize in a range, which would be bullish for your position because you get to keep your gains. But if it just keeps going up and up and up, I mean, like, I feel like it's just coiling up to eventually collapse, which is what we've seen over and over again. So I think that's going to be one of the most important things that we see going into the end of the year, especially if we continue to get all-time highs on the S&P. Reddit, that's at 210, continuing to go green. GSI Technology is up 170%. What is this thing? Design, development, and marketing of memory products primarily for the networking and telecommunication markets. Wide area network infrastructure equipment. This is a $400 million company. They must have had a headline today to get this thing moving. GSIT. GSI Technology, the inventor of Associated Programming Unit, a paradigm shift in artificial intelligence and high-performance compute processing, providing true compute and memory technology, announced the publication of a paper led by researchers at Cornell University. Findings confirmed that GSI's technology architectures can match GPU-level performance for large-scale AI applications with a dramatic reduction in energy consumption due to high density and high bandwidth memory associated with CIM architecture. Maybe this was why NVIDIA was down? Because this $400 million company published a paper saying that they can match GPU level performance with less energy consumption based on a different paradigm of how they associate high bandwidth memory with their architecture. How long has this company been public? GSIT. These guys have been public since 2007. Today, the stock is up 170%. Market cap's $500 million. And they basically said they're going to create something better than the traditional GPU. I don't know anything about this stock or this company. I just read the PR in front of you. But again, like, is it healthy to say, hey, we published a white paper and we can use less energy to make better GPUs. Therefore, the stock is up 100. They haven't sold a single one of these. They haven't landed any contracts. There's no data centers. It's a white paper. I mean, come on, bro. This stuff is not real. Like, this is like it could be real, but a white paper increases the market cap by $300 million. Like, what are we talking about? This is the stuff you just don't want to see, bro. You don't want to see this shit. It's not real. Like, this stuff ends up fading. And I don't think it's healthy either. So we got to see. I think it's halted too, by the way, because it's not really moving. Let me see if it's halted on Webull. Webull still is horrible, dude. Webull's barely moving either. But it looks halted. If Oklo can make money, so can GSIT. Yeah, there you go. I mean, dude, I'm not denying the validity of their white paper. I haven't read through the whole thing. They probably did potentially come up with some amazing breakthroughs. But does that mean the stock needs to go up 170% for a company that's been public since 2007? Like people are just trusting that, yeah, for sure, they invented a breakthrough on GPUs and just buying it? Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's not weird. And again, I really don't want to see the bull market continue and a lot of nonsense run with it, unless they deserve it. And by the way, I'm talking about my own stocks. I don't think Robinhood should go back to 150 until they have earnings that justifies that. Robinhood being at 150, 155, if we go back to all-time highs on the S&P 500, would also be a joke, in my opinion, as much as I love Robinhood. But they have not put up the growth yet to deserve that. Now in Q3, if they put up the growth, I think they should deserve that, and a premium if they can really continue to execute. But whether it's a Robinhood, whether it's a Nebius at 140, whether it's an Oklo at 190, a lot of these things probably didn't deserve to go that high. And I don't want them to just get back to all-time highs when the S&P, which is much closer to all-time highs than Robinhood or Nebius is, gets back there. Just it's not reasonable to have those, because again, whatever goes up must come down, especially if it goes up as violently as it goes up. And I'm saying this as someone who has a lot of hood. I want it, but I want to hold it for a long time without dealing with these insane swings for no reason. And it also makes people not that attracted to the name if it goes up this much and goes down this much, because then there's no consistency at actually holding it. Oklo is down a decent chunk on the day, down about 4%. The other thing about these momentum stocks is once they lose momentum, it's hard to get it back, dude. It really is hard to get it back. ASTS up 3%. I mean, look at HIMS, dude. HIMS has basically lost momentum for the past couple of months with all these lawsuits that have happened. Now, HIMS is not a meme stock or anything, in my opinion. I think HIMS is a phenomenal company that's growing. But HIMS is 80 cents away from going back below 50. So once you lose a lot of momentum, and you have narratives for them, it's really tough to get people to come back in. And then the shorts get excited to attack. CoreWeave's taking a hit. That's down. My Robinhood app's still not working. NVIDIA, 184. Okay, so we got some NVIDIA green. It was at 181. Bit of a breakout. GTC is next week. It's going to be in DC. I think Jose might go there. So it'd be cool to see what Jose has to say there. Webull's working now. Let me check. Webull. Oh, I think it's back. Let's see. Uber up. Yeah, it's working. All right, there you go. Yep. Okay. Webull's back. Hopefully Legend comes back soon. Robinhood 135.90. All right, so at least we can use Webull now. Bitcoin, there you go, loading up immediately. A little bit of a lag, but you've got some more green than not. Ethereum 4,026. BMNR 53.23. Sana's up 10%. Another biotech. We talked about them last week. That's up 10.4. Do you think this will affect Amazon stock? If it would have, I think it would have happened by now. Again, it doesn't feel, and in 4 minutes, we're going to get an update from Amazon on their blog. It doesn't feel like, oh, hold on. We got an update like 5 minutes ago. Let me pull this up. It doesn't feel like the street cares as much, or it doesn't feel like it's, such an egregious error like CrowdStrike that the stock immediately tanks. We can confirm significant API errors and connectivity issues across multiple services in US East 1. We are investigating and will provide a further update in 30 minutes or soon if we have additional information. Damn. Also, Amazon's not CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike was a, $100 billion company. Amazon's $2.3 trillion. So to get a 30% downturn like CrowdStrike, it's just hard for Amazon to go down 30. I mean, Amazon is a little bigger and a bit more important for it to go down as aggressively. S&P, are we at 670? Wow, 670 S&P. She's back, even with all the hiccups today. 670 on the S&P. 3 more bucks and we are back to all-time highs. And the good thing is, we're not really seeing stupid stocks run. And again, I don't mean stupid in an offensive way. I just mean a little offensive, but I'm just saying, like, some of these names that probably didn't deserve to go up 7,000% in a year. Oklo is down 5% while the S&P is up 1%. I think that's healthy. I think that is healthy. What's another name of a random stock? SMR, Nanonuclear. Yeah, Nanonuclear down 4%. SMR down 0.79%. What are some other names that ran up for no reason that we don't want to see them going up? I mean, all the quantum names are down. Dude, this is actually really bullish because if freaking quantum started going back to the moon at the same time as the S&P, you would say, okay, everyone's just running in to buy everything and it's a clown market again. But seeing those names stay down and people buy quality like the S&P, like NVIDIA, like Google, that's bullish. It's leaving a lot of that money behind, and hopefully that money is not really going to come back and elevate those companies as hard as they were 3 weeks ago. S&P 670.3. She's really making a move for it. Big Bear AI. Okay, that's up 2%, but it's down from $10. Look, I don't hate Big Bear, but has anyone looked at their earnings? They're growing negative 5%. Like I don't understand why the stock has any level of premium. There's no growth. It's an AI company in the age of AI, and there's no growth. Like, what are we talking about? So some of these names, right? Like, it doesn't even, I'm not even trying to be super bearish. It's just like they probably don't deserve to go to the moon. And if they are going to the moon, it's not a good indicator of a healthy market. S&P right there, 670.29. Fear and greed is at 32. That is also, yes, moving up, which is good because we're not in extreme fear anymore. So that one's getting a little bit more momentum. All right, they're talking about AWS. Let's get some coverage here and see some more about what's going on.
Ago that there are significant API errors and connectivity issues across multiple servers in its US East 1 region. We're expecting an update on that within a half hour. Now, this outage first hit early this morning, knocking dozens of companies offline, from government websites to crypto platforms and AI tools like Perplexity. AWS powers roughly a third of the cloud market, and the issue stemmed from a failure in its Northern Virginia data center, disrupting more than 70 services. Now, cyber experts say it wasn't a cyber attack, but it does highlight how fragile the internet's backbone has become, especially in the age of AI, where services like Anthropic rely on AWS to run their large language models in real time. Now, compared to last year's CrowdStrike meltdown, which was resolved quickly but left companies dealing with manual recovery for weeks, this was a different kind of failure. As one expert put it to me, CrowdStrike shut down the computers themselves while AWS shut down the services that those computers talk to. AWS's US East 1 region has been a recurring point of failure for them. It is the cloud's busiest, most interconnected zone. And when something breaks there, the ripple effects spread fast. Morgan Stanley called the incident not helpful to already fragile AWS sentiment. They expect Amazon to issue credits to customers. Investors will have this in mind when Amazon reports earnings next week. Remember, AWS growth has been lagging behind Azure and Google, and backlog now trails Microsoft and Oracle. Guys?
I guess one of the questions is, Mackenzie, if it has any kind of lasting impact in the minds of their clients, right, and causes them to switch competitively. That's what we were all asking during the CrowdStrike outage as well.
Well, notably, OpenAI has not been an AWS customer. Anthropic, we've seen them diversify into GCP and this multi-cloud strategy to avoid this kind of disruption. We heard from the Perplexity CEO this morning, attributing all of the disruption that they've seen to this AWS outage. And it is a huge concern, especially in this generative AI era where these companies are hungry for compute, and they are primarily getting it from these cloud providers while they build out all this infrastructure. Because all those OAI deals worth $1.5 trillion, it's not built yet, and it's not coming online for at least a year.
Got an update from Amazon. We have confirmed multiple AWS services experienced network connectivity issues in the US East 1 region. We are seeing early signs of recovery for the connectivity issues and are continuing to investigate the root cause. Okay, so they don't have a full root cause explanation yet. I mean, I know a bunch of people said there were some DNS issues, but I would imagine when they fully investigate in probably 24 to 48 hours, maybe even tonight, we're going to get a full reason for why this happened. And maybe, the stock is not absorbing the actual reason for why this happened, but we'll find out later. Amazon's up 1% on the day, 215. S&P still holding 670. If we could get a 670 close today, folks, the bulls might be back in charge, but we're going to have to see if we can hold that level. Tesla right there, that's up 1%. Palantir up 2.4%, and then Hoodie still holding up 5% on the day. AMD, is she running? AMD, wow, back to 241. Is that all-time highs? I think that's all-time highs. Yeah. AMD, all-time highs. I probably can't check resistance. Yeah, Hood's not working enough for me to check resistance. But 241.51 today was the all-time high on an AMD. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad. AMD was a big one this year for a lot of retail. CrowdStrike's at 496. Baba's up a bit. IBKR is up a little bit. Cisco's up a little bit. Oklo is still down, it looks like. CrowdStrike again, 496. Delta's up 2.5. Rocket Lab, 69.28. Let's go back to Webull, see if that's working. My price target for Amcor is 45 to 50. I'm assuming a doubling in sales, so from like 6.3 to closer to 12.9. But that's towards the end of next year. So I think there's about 20, 25 bucks of upside from these levels going into the end of the year. Rocket Lab, 69.15. S&P still holding 670. And then Amazon, 215. ASTS, yeah, Webull's still being slow, dude. Webull's not fully fixed. I still can't search for ASTS. Damn. So like some stuff is coming back. My Robinhood app's not working. I can't make a single trade. So that's, wait, can I? Oh, hold on. Is it coming back? AMD just loaded for me. No, I can't. Well, it's been an hour since the market opened. I mean, you might have a Robinhood and a Coinbase seriously think about moving. They're going to have to get some compensation from AWS on this. Imagine the amount of dollars Robinhood's losing right now. Like, imagine the hundreds of thousands of trades that are not happening, that could be happening because of this. That's where you could have a little bit of a bear case for a Q4 guidance. Amazon might say, CrowdStrike said this as well. It wasn't that big of a deal, but the point is it did hurt their growth estimates. Amazon might say, look, we had to give Robinhood $10 million voucher of AWS credits because we lost a lot of money for them on Monday, October 20th. We had to do the same for Coinbase and Slack. And, there might be some compensation that Amazon has to give out if this really gets bad. And that could be a deeper issue. Oracle's still down on the day. Yeah, I'm not sure why Oracle's down. Didn't see a headline on Oracle. It did rally a lot last week, though. From like 270 to 303. It's at 2. Oh, wow. It's down a lot today. No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the headline. I'll see if I can find something. That's weird. It was holding 295. Gold is still up. And silver is still up. Here is a new chart over the weekend. I thought this was pretty incredible. Take a look at generative AI web traffic across the board. Meta, Hugging Face, Grok, Claude, Perplexity. I mean, the traffic share has increased dramatically for all these services over the past 12 months. And it looks like more and more and more will continue. Now, Gemini continues to steal a lot more share from OpenAI. Gemini is still top 5 on the App Store. But Sora from OpenAI continues to be number 1. I've kind of concluded the video apps on AI just after a week of using them. I don't know if they're going to be a winner. I mean, like, I think they will get some audience, and I know they're growing like crazy, but part of the thing that makes social media fun is seeing your friends on social media and people you know, or like celebrities, right? Like people that you want updates from. This AI stuff is like, it gets bored pretty quickly. Like, does anyone else feel like that? And I don't know, bro. I know it's number 1 in the App Store. I know it's beating TikTok, but like, how many people really want to scroll through AI generated content enough to the point where it beats like user generated content on TikTok? It probably is too early for conclusions, but I don't know. I just kind of felt like this is missing the point of social media. The whole point is to connect more than just to see random AI generated content. Robinhood may have to spend on a backup. If their main server is down, the backup should work automatically. That means paying extra. Well, the backup's definitely not working automatically. It is still down for a lot of people here. But it's weird, right? It's like, you know, whenever Steve says, oh, the bull case for Netflix with AI is I can tell Netflix to generate me some type of show based on a prompt. I'm like, yeah, that's probably cool. But like, I still feel like someone's creative vision manifesting in content is what people want to consume more than them prompting their own type of content. Not saying there's not going to be a massive market for prompting your own content. Just don't know if that's what people will connect with long term. You know, like the reason you go to Instagram is because you want to see your friend's bachelor party. You know, AI can't replicate the memories of your friend's bachelor party, right? So I don't know. It's just, it's not the most compelling offering to me from OpenAI. And if that's what they're spending all these data centers on is more AI slop videos, I just feel like the ROI is not going to be that aggressive. And by the way, so Nadella had some beef over the weekend with Altman in terms of what he said. So the information reported that OpenAI could spend more on servers going into 2030 with Oracle than Microsoft. And OpenAI's growing compute needs have led to the end of its exclusivity with its Microsoft deal. Microsoft executives are worried about the consequences of overbuilding data centers. So basically, the information got some quotes from executives that said, hey, we think that the data center build out for OpenAI is becoming too aggressive. And as a result, we don't want to finance and be a part of the amount of cloud compute that OpenAI is going to need for these data centers. And so it's okay if they use other parties. AKA Nadella saying, hey, maybe a divorce is not the worst idea here. And we're still going to keep some of our assets if we get a divorce, which is probably around 30% of the company. But we don't want to really be associated with these guys building out as much as they're building out because we don't know if there's going to be that much usage. Now, in OpenAI's defense, their argument is people are underestimating dramatically the amount of CapEx that's going to need to be spent. And, you know, we're going to need trillions and trillions of dollars or more. And Nadella doesn't necessarily disagree with that. I think Nadella is just not sure exactly the route that OpenAI is going to make that happen. And so as a result, you might see that breakup happen towards the end of the year. But we're going to have to see how that ends up playing out. Videos are expensive to generate. They need to monetize those relatively quickly. Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, like, when are they going to start putting ads in these? When are they going to start putting ads in ChatGPT in general, dude? It's kind of crazy. When you really think about the world, there's not that many ways to make money. It's like people pay for something or people pay to get other people to pay for something. Like if you really sum up the world, those are the two business models. People pay you for something, or they pay you to get you to make other people pay for something. And so, I mean, there's not that many creative models that ChatGPT is going to go after. It's either subscription revenue or advertising. And until advertising ramps up, subscription revenue is just not as juicy as what the potential of advertising could be. AMD right there, 242 all-time highs on AMD. So it looks like AMD is getting a bid today, maybe with a lot of the Jensen talk over the weekend. NVIDIA right there up 0.5% as well. S&P, look at that, 670.5. Maybe we're going back to 671. That would be a official. I mean, that would be what? Let's do the math. That is closing in on, if we hit 671. Yeah, that's 4%. That would be 4% from the bottom. From the bottom on two Fridays ago. Even hoodie, 137. A 4% move over the past 2 weeks would be very nice to see going into earnings as well. Navitas continues to move. That one's moving as well. And S&P very close to 671. NVIDIA, that's up 1%. Tesla up 1%. Then AMD, look at that. AMD's going for 243. I guess all the semiconductors are moving in unison today. I don't see a major headline on any of them outside of the Jensen interview last night, but it's enough to get them moving. What about APIs? Yeah, but APIs, again, like the categories are so broad because I think they encompass everything. API is you're paying for a product or service. Like there's two business models. You either pay for a product or service, whether it's a subscription, an API, and you're paying and you're getting a service, or you're paying to get someone to know about your service. And there is a God knows how many $1 trillion market of that, AKA the pay for attention. You either have someone's attention and you're monetizing, or you're paying for their attention. And so like Palantir provides a product, they get paid for it. Google provides a product that allows other people to pay them to get people to know about their product, aka advertising. And it's like, I don't know how else OpenAI monetizes. Their API is a product that people will pay for API calls. Their subscription is a product people pay for, or they're going to have to get advertising into the system and really start showing ads on every query, because the amount of queries that they have every day without ads, one could argue those are tens and tens of billions of dollars a month they'd be making if they do it effectively. S&P really getting a breakout right here, 670.8. SoFi as well, 28.17. 671 would be really, really dope to actually see on the day. Amid, at what point do we start considering these runs on more legit names to be too extended? What growth rate inflection would you consider to be a signal of a top? I think you have to look at their earnings projection. So again, when you look at NVIDIA, if they're going to do $11 of EPS in 2027, this thing trades at 25 times earnings. Or I think it's 27 times earnings. So if they trade, and then you have to ask yourself, is 27 times too expensive? I think the answer is no. Meta, if you assume their earnings forecasts don't even get aggressive on what the analysts have, they're trading at 25 times forward earnings. Google's, I think, is at 24 or 23 or 24. Now, obviously, the Teslas of the world are trading at like 200 times. Palantir's trading at 200. Like those are super, super aggressive, but they're growing way faster. And, they're getting a bit more of a premium because of the potential of their growth. But in terms of a top signal for the most important names in the market, like in Apple, like in NVIDIA, I mean, the multiples don't seem so aggressive to the extent where you would think it's 2021 and Meta is worth $1 trillion when there's no way in hell Meta should be worth $1 trillion. Which is not why it's not feeling that crazy. Okay, yes, let me correct myself. Tesla is not growing at all, not even growing faster, but the perception of Tesla is that they will grow faster. And again, you can't put Tesla in these conversations because Tesla is a unicorn. It's a different name. Like it's a different breed. No other company can get away with what Tesla gets away with. So the perception of their ability to 10x, which is how Elon's going to get paid $1 trillion, is what keeps the stock elevated. But that's not a signal of a top to me. Now, NVIDIA, if NVIDIA was trading like $350 right now, like, yeah, that would be weird because like NVIDIA has not put up the growth and there's still a lot of risk associated with the broader CapEx thesis for NVIDIA to have that much of a forward multiple. But again, when Costco is trading at 50 times and NVIDIA is trading at 27 times, it's hard to scream like that's a bubble. That's probably not exactly the best definition of one. Falling Knife, thank you for the $200 super chat. Appreciate you being here. Hope you enjoyed Italy, Mr. Falling Knife. He was in Italy for the past couple weeks, and hopefully you got to spend some time with the family and have a good vacation. Appreciate you coming back. Google right here, 255. That is green on the day. SoFi, wow, dude. Should have bought SoFi last night. I said I was going to buy it. I didn't know we would be this green this morning, bro. I thought we would be kind of flat to choppy like we were on Friday. Well, we just opened up green, which means, I don't know, maybe we'll have a little bit of a dip during the week, but if we can keep this going, break all-time highs, maybe we don't need to see a dip. Wow, 671. We are $2 away from all-time highs. And there's not even a crazy headline this morning. The biggest headline is that Amazon is messing up everything. Besides that, no other updates by Amazon, by the way. There's no other crazy headlines. The China stuff was kind of yesterday's news. The NVIDIA Jensen interview was yesterday's news. I mean, we looked at a bunch of macro stats, but those aren't major headlines. China GDP was last night. It seems like it's just people coming back into the market, right? Or maybe the headline is no one can sell because Robinhood and Webull are down in that. But like, that would be hilarious if that's the reason. But I don't think that's the reason we're getting this big of a boost across the board. Look at Hoodie, even with all the problems, 137. Tesla's up 1, Palantir's up 2. Rocklep trying to close in on 70. And then AMD pushing 242 as well. Yeah, October 19th, by the way, yesterday was Black Monday. 1987, S&P and Dow were down 20% in a day. Could you imagine if we had a 20% drawdown in a day on the S&P? I know we kind of had something like that back in April. It was over the course of 3 weeks. But if we lost 20% in a day, bro, I don't even want to imagine what would happen. We lost 3% 2 Fridays ago. And people were just like, well, I guess everything's done. It's like, now granted, everyone bought the dip, which is so far worked out, but still, it's, I think psychologically, 20% down in a day would wreck everybody. Institutionally and retail, it would be crazy. That would get bottomed so quickly. Dude, 20% means Robinhood's probably going to 50. Tesla's probably going to 200. Palantir's probably going to 60, 70, maybe. Grab's going to like 5 cents. Reddit's going to 95. I mean, like a 20% S&P drawdown. I'm being too generous. Reddit's probably going to $30. Meta's probably going to freaking 300. Because again, 20% on the S&P in a day is usually 30 to 50% on individual stocks because they trade at a relative premium and beta towards the S&P. It would be a hell of a dip opportunity. It would be a hell of a dip opportunity if that happens. It's just no one would have money, right? Like we'd all be freaking down on everything. Unless you have some cash on the sidelines. By the way, speaking of money, Bank of America's survey of institutional investors show that their cash is at an all-time low, 3.8%. So it's not just retail that's buying the dip. It is not just retail that's buying the dip. It is also institutional fund managers that are, as you can see right here, having the lowest cash level in 12 years. Now, you could think this is toppy because there's, everyone's into the markets, or you can think it's not just retail that's piling in, it's institutions, which is less toppy because then you have a mix of market participants that are buying these dips. And this was as of last week. So this was after the 3% drawdown, which, likely means that more fund managers ended up buying more, which is not too bad. SMCI is up potentially on rumors of an XAI contract not confirmed, but that is the reason why SMCI was up 7% on the day. Look at the S&P. It's not stopping. 671.20. 673.95 is the all-time high. 673.95 is the all-time high. SMCI right there up still 6.7% on the day. 100% correction coming in 2026. Now, look, history is on your side if you think a correction is coming in 2026 because it's a midterm year and midterms are pretty damn bad for the market. But there was a ton of reasons to get bearish in 2025 on a historical precedent, and that didn't end up happening. So I don't know if it has to happen in the same way that people would think it would happen. But 2022, S&P was down. 2018, S&P was down. Both of those are midterm years. So the most recent midterm elections we've seen, we've just not had a healthy move higher. But we also didn't have the AI tailwind. We didn't have the Fed easing in 22. In 22 and 2018, the Fed was hiking. So that is one way that it makes 2026 legitimately different, is you have a more friendlier Fed. And then you have real earnings growth. And that is, I think, the best retort to all these arguments about, well, if you look historically, yada, yada. It's like, well, historically, the earnings growth has never been the way it's been. And in 2026, if that continues, then maybe that doesn't exactly have to happen in the same way. Yeah, September is the worst month. I mean, that wasn't that wasn't true. September was a phenomenal month. August was a phenomenal month. So it's like, it's just like, how aggressive do we need to have 2026 from a structural perspective, either on the macro side, the AI side, the CapEx side, the earnings side? Like, what needs to break to make the system to break? I don't know. I don't know what it needs to be, because every time we've thought historically something should break, we haven't really seen that break. And we've had earnings to come in to show us that it's hard to be on the sidelines in this market. CleanSpark still up 10% of the day. Again, CleanSpark is up because they hired someone to officially manage the data center business. Jeffrey Thomas, Senior Vice President now of data centers. That's why CleanSpark right there, up 13% of the day. We're going to have 3 interest rate cuts next year, so I don't see markets correcting until 2027. Yeah, and dude, like every year, if we keep saying, all right, the correction's coming, it's the most anticipated correction of all time, which is good because there's so many people expecting it, and we know what the markets love to do, right? They don't like to go with consensus, and so it might not be that easy to call the top here if every single person is trying to call the top. I mean, in 2021, again, how many people were legit calling the top in 2021? Like, yeah, I wasn't live streaming every single day and keeping up that much with sentiment around the broader markets, but like in 2021, when Bitcoin was at 69,000, it felt like it was going to 100,000. I personally felt the whole NFT stuff was kind of stupid, and the Web3 promise of technology, I felt like a lot of it was dumb, but I wasn't out here. I was buying Palantir at 27, watching it go down to $6 the next year. So I definitely was not the person who called the top, but like, who legitimately said, yup? Like, there weren't a lot of people calling it, and that's why it happened, because like almost no one was saying it. I mean, what famous fund manager said 2021 is a top? You know, you had a lot of people call the 2000 top, including Howard Marks. Like, which was it? Bill Ackman? Was it Buffett? Who actually said, "Yep, we are in a bubble. It's a top"? Who was pounding the table? I can't even remember a single big name. It definitely wasn't Cathie Wood. So if it was no one back then, and that's why it came up behind us, and now it's everyone this time, I feel like it's different. I feel like it has to be a little bit different than before. Now, Tom Lee got bullish in 2020. He even admitted it was a mistake. I mean, he did a interview a while ago. I think we watched the clip where Tom Lee was like, yeah, Tom Lee said Mark Newton, their technical guy, basically told him to start getting bearish, and he ignored it. And he said, next time I'm going to need Mark Newton to like really tell me to pay attention, because, you know, he ended up not realizing how bearish it could become. And then they ended up missing the downturn. So even Tom Lee did not. There weren't really that many prominent figures that were like, "Yep, it's a bubble," but it ended up being a bubble. SoFi 28.40, 7%. It looks like she's going for freaking 30. Looks like she's going 430. Michael Burry. Well, no, Michael Burry said to sell in January of 2023. You guys remember that famous tweet by Burry? The Burry sell tweet? He deleted it, but this was the tweet. 7 o'clock, January 31st, 2023. This was when Tesla was still at 103. Palantir was at 7. This was like, we bottomed in December 22 or October 22, but January 23 was not pretty. It was only until around March, April that things started getting a little bit more exciting in terms of a potential. But that's when ChatGPT started making more sense. That's when NVIDIA had that quarter in May that like blew everyone out of the water. So there weren't that many people that really saw the damage that could be happening back in 21. NVTS, I don't know why this one keeps moving. I mean, at this point, is anyone getting a bit concerned that it's just moving for the hell of moving, or is there something legit for why it's moving? But it continues to move. Navitas, 20% on the day. Does anyone think that's justified? Is that a real move, or is that just hype? Or is that legit? I mean, they announced an NVIDIA deal last week. It's up 400% this year. It's up 145% in the past month. I just don't know enough about Navitas, so I can't say, but I do know the NVIDIA partnership was legit last week. Bit of a squeeze. Yeah, and honestly, that's probably it. 28% short float. That's probably what's taking place right here. But Navitas is, one of the only names that's squeezing like that. I mean, a lot of those other names, maybe Rocket Lab, a little bit of a squeeze. It still has 10% short float, 71.64. SoFi still 8% short. I mean, not enough for a massive squeeze, but potentially a little bit. S&P still holding 671. And that other stock we looked at, GSIT, it's up 182% on the day based on this white paper that they put out. Navitas is more of an energy story. Maybe it's worth a deep dive, dude. I do not know too much about Navitas. Maybe it is worth a deep dive. $3 billion company, so it's a very small company. We'll put it on the list. Maybe there's something deeper we have to look at. I'm just looking at the velocity of the move and wondering, like, is it actually justified? Or is there a lot of people piling in at this point? ARCG is up 8% today. Wow, dude, you got a lot of... Dude, today feels like an everything rally. Look at that. ARCG up 8%. Now, here's the thing. This is why I think today is pretty bullish. Oklo is down 3%. Like, you really, really want to see the markets get back to normal and not have a lot of the froth run with it. And if that Open Door, look, Open Door is up 3%, but Open Door is not making all-time highs. It's been months since it was at that 1087 level. So, if Open Door was blasting to $12 today, that probably wouldn't be the healthiest, but it's not. And if you're an Open Door bull, I think it's healthy for it to normalize around 7, not lose 7, but also not blast up to 9 for no reason until they put up earnings. Which, look, I don't know as much about Open Door's new changes, but I don't know if their earnings are going to be amazing. Because at the end of the day, they still have to make money on selling houses. But if they do a earnings call that's a bit more innovative, gets retail excited, gets the street to see their vision, maybe Kaz can communicate a new future for the company. Maybe they do a video call and, really turn it into an event. That could be something that gets people more excited about Open Door. Venmo's not working. I mean, PayPal probably works with AWS, which could be affecting Venmo. Iren's up 2% on the day at 58 to 62. Fermi is also down. Hood making new highs of day. S&P still moving, 671.20, along with SoFi. Legend still being pretty slow, but we are seeing these continue to make a move. Is Apple all-time highs right now? Holy crap, Apple just hit all-time highs. Wow. 261.57. Look at that. Shout out to Apple. All-time highs. That is very nice to see. And it's justified. It's not just Apple's going up for the hell of it. The iPhone 17 reports look pretty damn bullish on this upgrade cycle. And so you could argue it's a justified move that you're seeing on Apple. Like, I'm seeing a lot of healthy things right here. I'm not seeing Oklo go to the moon. I'm not seeing Quantum go to the moon. I'm seeing the S&P recover. I'm seeing Apple hit all-time highs. Apple is a company that should be hitting all-time highs over a lot of other companies because it's freaking Apple. And they can buy back 100 billion of their stock, and they do freaking 90 billion of revenue every quarter. Like, you know, you're just seeing a little bit more of the fundamentals come into the picture. And then you're seeing NVIDIA and AMD continue to make a move as well. And Apple helps the S&P, right? Apple is about 6.3% of the S&P. So not too bad. Not too bad. Can you sell anything? Let me see. Can I load it on my phone? No, dude, it's still not loading. Dude, it's been 2 hours. This is pretty bad. This is pretty bad for Hood. And I know it's not their fault, but it's still pretty bad. I'm going to try to open up Coinbase. No, my Coinbase isn't working either. It's not even loading. It literally won't even take me to the login page. It's just stuck. Wow, dude. And obviously Weeble's not working. Yeah, that's pretty incredible to see that type of a hit. Palantir right there up 2.4, and then Robinhood still up 5.9. SoFi, big winner of the day, along with AMD, 241. And then if we can get a 270 close on the S&P, I think that'd be bullish. I think that'd be super bullish. So there you go. A couple of you guys saying Hood is going good. I guess, you know, mine's not working, but I guess for a bunch of you guys, it is working. Oscar, that one's moving up. Where's UNH? UNH is 361. That's green on the day. Oscar is green 5% on the day. In terms of the heat map, I should see pretty much all green. Wow, look at this. Oracle and AppLovin, that's it. That is all you've got. And a little bit of T-Mobile. Well, and you got some Walmart and Coca-Cola and Pepsi. But outside of that, everything's green. Everything is green. Yeah, look, if you're on Schwab, IBKR, Fidelity, or E-Trade, you've had a good day. You've had no issues. But if you're on Hood, Webull, or Coinbase, you got hit. We don't know if it's a cyber attack. I mean, Amazon didn't really disclose anything yet. Probably later tonight we'll get a better update. Still no update on their website on exactly what's the root cause, but we'll find out later today. All right, folks. I think that is it for the day. Hopefully during the market close, it'll get a lot better. I think story of the day is Apple all-time highs, AMD all-time highs, NVIDIA trying to break out back to the 185, and then the S&P recovering, while the random frothy stocks are not moving at the same velocity as high-quality companies. And the China stuff is de-escalating pretty significantly from last night. I think that's bullish. I think it's really freaking bullish, knowing that in 9 days we get a rate cut. So you got Tesla and Netflix this week. You got a rate cut next week. You got Trump and Xi next week, potentially Trump and Kim Jong-un. And then you have the broader AI CapEx tailwind that doesn't seem to be slowing down based on all the earnings we've seen. And hopefully in the next coming days, we're going to see those earnings continue, along with the market recovering without a lot of the frothy names going up with it. I mean, that to me is a pretty decent story going into earnings. Pretty decent story going to earnings. And then potentially, yeah, based on what Kevin Hasset said, maybe the government reopening by the end of the week as well, which would be bullish. Yeah, I'll be back for the market close. I mean, I'm going to, after the market close, I'll be going back home to my parents and celebrating Diwali with them. But I'll be back for the close. I'm actually going to see Steve right now. We're going to get some lunch in New York. So I will be seeing him there. And yeah, we should be back on the market close and keep this going as usual. But no other crazy headlines today outside of, it seems like, just the broader market starting to get a bit more of the earnings excitement. And that seems to be coming back. I will send your regards to the milkman. I will send your regards to the milkman. It should take me like 25 minutes to get to New York. I'm pretty close, so it shouldn't take me too long to get there. All right, word of the day. What do we got? Word of the day. It's a long ass word. Contemporaneous. Contemporaneous. I feel like I've heard this word before.
Contemporaneous.
Okay. There you go. This is what happens when you don't give me French words. I can actually speak them. Originating, existing, or occurring at the same time. Okay, cool. Originating, existing, or occurring at the same time. I guess contemporaneously, Hood, Webull, and Coinbase all got shut down due to what happened this morning with Mr. AWS. So that's what we got. That's what we got on the day. All right, folks, that is it for me. I'll be back on the close. Thank you again for joining. I'm sorry the flow of the show was not as strong as it could have been. Hopefully this stuff gets fixed by the close, and by tomorrow, I'm pretty sure it should get fixed, at least by market close, if not by market open tomorrow. And we should be in a good situation. 3 updates. I said this last night. I'll just say, reiterate them here, and then we'll be done for the day. Cactus Jack, again, he has officially joined the stream full-time, or joined AK Media full-time. So if you guys see him in the chat, he will be helping me with the show, topics, prepping all this stuff. And, he's been in the chat for the past year. So really happy to have him full-time. And it'll hopefully just make me a lot more efficient at getting breaking news, and hopefully help everyone else who needs a lot of that breaking news to get through the day. So we got Cactus on the team. Number 2, I said this last night, the meetups are coming back in 2026. I had a really good meeting with a management agency on Saturday. And we have not officially signed a deal, but essentially I'm looking for an organization that can really help me with planning, security, logistics, infrastructure, all the stuff that it takes to travel across the world and throw these events. And I think I found the people I'm looking for. So I will let you guys know updates on if that gets done, probably end of November, but I have a pretty good feeling about it. And the person who set this up is someone that I met in Miami who has 40 years of event planning experiences. He owns multiple nightclubs. So it's a really good mix in terms of the type of people I'm looking for. And the meetup should be coming back next year. And I think it'll be really exciting because the meetups have been pretty successful in 2025. And I think we can take them to the next level next year. And then, the final update is just the Substack. I really appreciate people subscribing to it. It really means a lot to me. I'm falling in love with writing. I never thought I would say that, but for some reason, I really enjoy the process of writing. It's just like, it's kind of a new challenge for me. I think I've been talking for so many years that I was looking for a new way to express myself. And I guess the written word, which I genuinely never thought I would become a writer, it's fascinated me, absolutely fascinated me. And so, yeah, we have about 12,000 people that subscribed on Substack. Really means a lot. Duolingo, BMNAR for the first 2 deep dives. I think there's a lot more content that I'll be able to put on this platform outside of just deep diving into companies. Like when Robinhood has their earnings and I want to write up all my thoughts on those earnings, that'll be a deep dive into Robinhood's earnings. So I think there's a lot of content that hopefully people will be able to enjoy. And for those that really like reading research, this is the new one we're going to be doing. So you guys can subscribe there. It is free, no paywall. There won't ever be a paywall. And we'll keep going from there. I already started working on the next 2 deep dives. I already started working on it. Like literally Saturday, I was like, all right, time to work on the next one. Like it's actually, I don't know, bro. I'm getting into my writer era. Maybe I become an author, bro. Maybe I write a book. Maybe I need to write a book on how to be funny. Maybe that would, maybe that's where this takes me. Who knows? We're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens. But no, I really do like writing, and we're gonna keep doing it over the coming years and see it go from there. Romance. That's what I need to do. I need to write a book on love. That's what I need to do. That's what we got to do. All right. That's it for me. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you back on the market close. Hopefully this stuff is fixed with Robinhood and Webull and AWS. Australian PM meeting Trump in about 30 minutes. We'll get some updates on how that goes. And we'll see if we can close above 670 on the S&P 500 again. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys on the market close. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.